Chapter 1963. However, Zi Qianma subconsciously felt that it was not possible, because the living fossils and old coffins of the Eastern Empire were all people of the same generation as her. Back then, in order to establish the Eastern Empire, they fought side by side with her. Their relationship was very deep. It was impossible for them to destroy her magic weapon and kill her disciples. In order to transcend, she cut off her ties with the mortal world and cut off her relationship with the Purple Marquis Mansion. This was not a pretense, but a real break. It was acceptable for these old coffins of the Eastern Empire to kill them. Too many years had passed, and the bloodline was already very thin. Saint Qianma was not willing to take revenge for these bloodline descendants at all. In addition to her roots in her family, there were more than thousands of such families like the Purple Marquis Mansion. Today, one was injured and she went to save him. Tomorrow, one was obsessed with cultivation, and she went to guide him to resolve it. The day after tomorrow, another one was killed, and she went to take revenge. How could she have the time to cultivate? How could she have the energy to pursue the supreme realm? Moreover, she had heard a little about what the Purple Marquis did. He was fierce and domineering, killing loyal people and bullying his colleagues. He had already betrayed her original intention and philosophy when she established the clan. The reason why the Eastern Imperial family killed him was because the Purple Marquis was dishonest. He set off a bloody storm, causing the people to suffer and the people to live in misery. To put it bluntly, even if the Eastern Imperial family did not do it, Saint Qianma herself wanted to clean up the clan. This time, she sent Hua Xiangrong and Su Xiaotang to the Purple Marquis Mansion to bring them to the sect to cultivate. In fact, she wanted to take the opportunity to teach them a lesson and let them focus on the overall situation, be loyal to the royal family, and not bring chaos to the empire. But the relationship between master and disciple was different. It had already surpassed the thin blood relationship. Moreover, her disciples and students were also the practitioners and executors of her ideals. In Saint Qianma's view, those old farts of the Eastern Imperial family would definitely not do anything to her disciples. Even if the situation was urgent and they had no choice but to do it, they would come to her sect and explain the whole story to avoid any conflicts. Or a battle formation? Zi Qianma added in her heart. The battle formation gathered the strength of all living beings and billions of soldiers. It was like gathering sand into a tower, gathering armpits into a fur coat, and trickling streams into a great river. Moreover, in recent years, in order to resist the interference of the sects, the knowledge of battle formations in the mortal empires was also improving and evolving. If the Eastern Imperial family gathered the armies of many dukes and marquises, they might be able to break the battle formation. It's not the sage of the Eastern royal family, nor is it the power of the battle formation. It's a rogue cultivator from outside the Milky Way named Jiang Xiqing. With a wave of his finger, he destroyed the bone-transforming Earth-Sky mirror. Hua Xiangrong said in a deep voice, "What? The power of his finger and palm is actually so terrifying." Zi Qianma's pretty face revealed a trace of surprise. She seemed to have received a great shock. The might of a saint weapon is boundless, and it can suppress others with the might of heaven and earth. Blocking a saint weapon is already extremely difficult, and destroying a saint weapon is even more difficult. To destroy a saint weapon with a single strike is even harder than ascending to the heavens. This fellow Daoist Xiqing's strength was truly impressive. I'm afraid he can be ranked in the top 20 of the entire continent. If it were 500 years ago when I hadn't reached the peak of my current realm, I'm afraid I wouldn't have the confidence to destroy the bone-transforming Earth-Sky mirror with one strike. This man is amazing and his strength is tyrannical. Even if I were to fight against him, I'm afraid I would have to spend a lot of effort to protect myself. It's reasonable that you didn't protect your junior sister apprentice. Don't worry about it. She waved her right hand, and the falling petals turned into a gentle wind, which helped Hua Xiangrong up. Hearing this, Hua Xiangrong couldn't believe it. She was so shocked that her whole body trembled. She said excitedly, This Jiang Xiqing is actually so powerful." Zi Qianma nodded slightly, and a smile appeared on her pretty face. Suddenly, it was as if hundreds of flowers were blooming, brightening up the whole world. Her voice was as pleasant as jade. This is what I said before. Love with impartiality and non-aggression, and all living beings are equal. The Saint Origin world is a whole, and the real enemy is the invasion of the devil realm. Whether it's a rogue cultivator or a native, we should love and support each other. Her eyebrows were raised in exultation, and she said excitedly, "You see, although Jiang Xiqing is a rogue cultivator from outside the Saint Origin world, his strength is incredible. He's much stronger than those conceited and complacent natives of the continent." Speaking of this, Zi Qianma sighed and frowned slightly. She said regretfully, "He has the cultivation of the void return realm, and I'm afraid his lifespan is at least 5,000 or 6,000 years. No, the cultivators from outside the Saint Origin world make slow progress, and I'm afraid his lifespan is more than 10,000 years. Unfortunately, his lifespan is too long, and the rules of the Great Way are too condensed and entangled with the origin, which conflicts with the wood cultivation method of our Luoying sect. Otherwise, if he can join our Luoying sect as an elder or a hall leader, wouldn't he be a rare talent? Wouldn't it make our Luoying sect even more powerful?" Hearing this, Hua Xiangrong also couldn't help but interrupt. "Master, it's my fault that I didn't tell you clearly because I was in a panic after the shocking battle. Jiang Xiqing is extremely young, and I'm afraid his lifespan is less than 100 years, or even less than 50 years old. Moreover, he's only in the nascent soul realm, but he has the strength to fight against a saint of the void return realm." "What?" This time, Zi Qianma turned pale with fright, and her body sank down. The porcelain-like ground was suppressed until fine cracks appeared on it, and the whole mountain trembled slightly and sank 100 meters. "Master!" Hua Xiangrong was shocked, and her face turned pale. Zi Qianma had always been calm and steady, and her heart was always calm. However, she couldn't even stabilize her body at this moment, and the rules were in disorder, cracking the ground and suppressing the mountain. It could be seen how unstable her mind was. How can there be such a person in the world? A nascent soul realm cultivator who is less than 100 years old can actually suppress a soul formation realm cultivator, and his strength is close to that of the void return realm, and even a saint. This is simply a rare peerless genius. Zi Qianma sighed and couldn't believe it. She waved her hand and said, "Give me all of Jiang Xiqing's battle records." During this time, she had been in seclusion, so she didn't know anything about what happened in the outside world. However, the Luoying sect was a peerless sect, and its intelligence system was so huge and terrifying that there was nothing it didn't know. She waved her hand. Senior Qianma. The Knowledge Hall, which was in charge of intelligence in the sect, responded, and a shining jade slip flew out from the depths of the hall. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of Zi Qianma. She pointed at the jade slip calmly. Brilliant light blossomed from the communication jade slip. Lines of words and lifelike images appeared in front of the woman. The more she read, the more shocked she was. She sighed and said, "Great talent, genius. This person is really extraordinary. The strength of a nascent soul realm cultivator is so terrifying. I'm afraid it's a divine nascent soul, or even a level higher, a rare deity nascent soul." "What? A deity nascent soul?" "It's like the deity nascent soul of a child from the 9 heavens." Hua Xiangrong couldn't believe it, and her face changed drastically as if she was struck by lightning. Chapter 1964. The immortal grade nascent soul was really rare. In the entire history of the Saint Origin world, there were only a few of them. Even those who claimed to be immortal grade nascent soul, the records about them were vague, and no one dared to say that they were undeniable. Many people speculated that these immortal grade nascent souls might have appeared for various purposes. Some people even claimed that the immortal grade nascent soul was a non-existent existence, and that it was merely a more powerful sacred grade nascent soul. A rogue cultivator from outside the river turned out to be an immortal grade nascent soul. It's incredible. However, if not, how can you explain his strength? He killed the abyssal demon dragon, who was comparable to a sage in the nascent soul realm. Hearing this, Hua Xiangrong couldn't help but be shocked. However, Hua Xiangrong suddenly reacted and blurted out, Master, are you not going to avenge junior sister apprentice Su? Moreover, that Jiang Xiqing was extremely savage, ferocious and vicious to the extreme. Even if you are kind and don't care about her. But the cultivation world has always been cruel. Will he believe it? He must be on guard. When he grows up one day, I'm afraid he will kill the sect and eliminate all future troubles. Hearing this, Saint Qianma looked over with a faint smile and asked with a cold face, "So, you think I should kill her in the cradle while she is still weak, so as not to raise a tiger, right?" "I do think so." A trace of resentment flashed in the depths of Hua Xiangrong's eyes. "I have told you many times that love with impartiality is not offensive. When it reaches the highest level, it means great love is like no love. This no love does not mean that you are cold and ruthless and ignore the world. It means that you are not bound by emotions and demonic obstacles. You look at cultivation, human affairs, life, and even the universe and the world with an objective and rational attitude." Saint Qianma said earnestly, "Jiang Xiqing did kill Su Shao. But think about it. What is all this for? First of all, Marquis-Shan was deceived by the demon clan. He led the vassals to raise the flag of rebellion and bring chaos to the Eastern Empire. In troubled times, severe punishments are needed. The Eastern royal family is too weak, and the power and strength of the vassals are too strong. If Jiang Xiqing did not kill her, it would be a warning to others. I'm afraid that in the near future, there will be a second, third, and fourth purple marquis. I've also seen the images of your imprints back then. Little Tang, this child, has disappointed me. Who would have thought that her understanding of the doctrine would be so rigid and inflexible? Jiang Xiqing had killed Ziyunshao and Zishan Marquis family. If she had prevented the subsequent war, she would have saved millions of lives. Do you understand? Disciple understands. Hua Xiangrong could only nod. Su Xiaotang has gone too far. Ziyunxiao's life was a life, but was Jiang Xiqing's life not a life? In order to save one person, he killed one person. What was the point? What kind of virtue was this? Without a word of disagreement, he raised his hand to kill. She's treating my words as a passing wind. She's disgracing the sect. Saint Qianma's eyes were filled with regret. She lamented his misfortune and was angry that he did not fight. She shook her head and sighed. Besides, if Jiang Xiqing is killed, the Eastern Imperium will not be able to reach a balance with the pantheon of demons. War broke out again. At that time, how many living beings would suffer? The flames of war continued, and the mountains and rivers were shattered. Su Xiaotang did not kill Jiang Xiqing alone, but billions of people. You can't be unemotional and act only based on your own likes and dislikes. Alas, sometimes I really doubt whether you are suitable to be my disciples, or even whether you are suitable for the doctrine of the Luoying sect, and whether it is necessary to stay in the sect. Saint Qianma's tone was neither warm nor angry, neither fast nor slow, but it was very shocking. There was a faint intention to expel her from the sect. It also brought great psychological pressure to Hua Xiangrong. Disciple knows her mistake. In the future, disciple will remember master's teachings and truly love with impartiality and non-aggression. I will act with a virtuous heart and be unemotional. I will love as if I have no love. I will look at everything rationally and comprehensively without being extreme or boastful. Hua Xiangrong was frightened. Her face was pale, and she was sweating profusely. She could not even stand. She hurriedly knelt on the ground, kowtowed like pounding garlic, and said in a trembling voice, "Alas! The doctrine of our Luoying sect has always been contrary to ordinary human nature. Cultivation is naturally filled with difficulties and obstacles, and demonic obstacles are everywhere." Saint Qianma shook her head gently with a kind look. She smiled slightly and said with deep emotion, "I don't blame you this time. Get up quickly. Find time to go down the mountain and meet the Eastern royal family. Tell them that I am deeply sorry for the rebellion of Purple Marquis." Saint Qianma said, "I will help them settle the chaos of the pantheon of demons. I also apologize to Jiang Xiqing on behalf of me and ask her to forgive me for not disciplining her well. I hope she can let bygones be bygones and cooperate with us to suppress the pantheon of demons." We can't just rely on our words. Go to the treasury of the sect and get some cultivation resources. I want 3 to 5 divine weapons and give them to Saint Xiqing. Saint Qianma waved her hand slightly, indicating that Hua Xiangrong could leave. The disciple obeys. Hua Xiangrong bowed deeply. Her graceful and sexy body turned slightly and disappeared from the place. Saint Qianma had been standing quietly for a long time without saying a word, like a jade statue of a goddess. After a long time, she sighed and muttered to herself, 3,000 years, in the blink of an eye, another 3,000 years have passed. 3,000 years ago, my husband and I just met. Hand in hand, we wandered in Jianghu freely. During a demon hunting mission, I met the founding emperor, Dongfang Run by chance. I was shocked by his amazing talent and unfathomable magical powers of the East Rising purple chi art. I was also moved by his great ambition of caring for the common people, lifting the sky from its side, and saving the people from their predicament. Inspired by him, we went on a campaign to conquer the world together, sweeping away all the influential families and ambitious and ruthless people in the world, and establishing the great unified Eastern Empire. A kind smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Her eyes became deep and vicissitudes of life. She seemed to have returned to the past when she was free and vigorous, traveling thousands of miles with a sword and fighting between heaven and earth. 3,000 years have passed. Dongfang Run has already died. Shen Lang has also turned into a handful of yellow soil. Only I, an old woman, am left. I'm still struggling at death's door. It's really sad. She sighed again, with endless bleakness and sadness. Mortals often envied the long lifespan of cultivators, who were almost immortal and had a long life. But for immortal cultivators who had extremely long lifespans, was a long lifespan really a lucky thing? During the long period of time, he watched as his loved ones grew old, his lover passed away from the world, and even his juniors withered away before him, leaving him all alone. How lonely and desolate was it to face the yellow light and the yellow light? How desolate and lonely was it? Time was ruthless. It withered the prosperity and shattered the beauty. In the end, even their memories were washed and covered, becoming blurred. Only they sat alone in the long river of time. No one accompanied them, and they didn't even know what day it was. Was this a kind of luck or misfortune? 3,000 years ago, the passage between the two worlds in the critical canyon was opened and the barrier was broken. Endless demonic chi erupted and the demon beasts were contaminated. They demonized and went berserk. They became bloodthirsty, cruel, and ruthless. They brought chaos to the world and destroyed all life. At that time, the Eastern dynasty had just been established. There were many things waiting to be done and the country was weak. But they were still fearless. They shouldered the responsibility of sweeping away the demons and suppressing the critical canyon. It was very difficult for them to fight. At that time, we also asked for help from the major sections. However, in the eyes of the high and mighty sects, we are just a newly established empire. A few divinity transformation stage cultivators are not worth mentioning at all. Other than the ancient medicine hall and the Luoying sect, no other forces sent reinforcements. In that battle, countless experts of the Eastern dynasty died. Blood flowed like a river and bones were piled up. In the mortal world, 9 out of 10 houses were empty and starving people were everywhere. There were even tragic scenes of people eating children. It was like hell on earth. Saint Qianma's eyes were even more sorrowful. She sighed and said, "But it's different this time. I'm considered a big figure in the Luoying sect. I have some ties with the sect masters of the major sects and sacred grounds and the emperors of the countries. If I ask them to help, they will give me some face." Thinking of this, she immediately took action. She told her disciple that she wanted to travel around and flew out. Chapter 1965. On the other side. In order to win over this Saint Xiqing, Master has really put in a lot of effort. 3 to 5 holy weapons, my God. That's 300 to 500 years of Master's holy weapons. After arriving at the mountain where the storehouse was located and receiving the treasures, Hua Xiangrong stood on the platform in front of the storehouse. She wiped the cold sweat off her forehead and murmured in shock. Master said 3 to 5, but I only took 3. I'm being frugal on behalf of Master. After all, Jiang Xiqing is just a rogue cultivator outside the river. She's not experienced and hasn't seen any natural treasures. Not to mention 3 holy weapons, even if it's 1, he'll be so happy that his mouth will split open. At this time, suddenly, 5 conveyance lights flew across the sky and landed on the platform. They turned into 2 men and 3 women, a total of 5 cultivators. The leader was a blue-clothed Huashan realm cultivator. He cupped his hands and said respectfully, "Greetings, Senior Sister Hua." Hua Xiangrong's face turned slightly serious. She returned the greeting seriously and said, "Greetings, Senior Brother Xing. Greetings, Senior Brothers and Sisters." The blue-clothed Huashan realm cultivator and the other cultivators were all disciples of Saint Lian Huahan. Lian Huahan had just broken through to the Void Return realm from Huashan realm. Her cultivation and strength were far inferior to her master, Saint Qinma. However, she was the saint of the Luoying sect, the daughter of the current sect master. Therefore, her status in the sect was very high. Even Zi Qianma and other elders, the giants of the Void Return realm, had to be courteous to her and talk to her as equals. Therefore, Hua Xiangrong didn't dare to neglect them. Because they followed different masters to cultivate, it was not easy to rank them based on their seniority. Therefore, they all called each other senior brothers and sisters to show their respect. "Senior Brother Xing, did you come to the storehouse to be rewarded by our master, or did you have some gains and hand in the treasures?" Hua Xiangrong had a good relationship with Senior Brother Xing. Therefore, she didn't stand on ceremony and asked directly with a smile. Neither. Hua Xiangrong was naturally charming and charming. Senior Brother Xing also liked her very much. Therefore, he didn't hide it from her. He put his hands behind his back and said with a smile, "Thunder Yang Sex Zongzi Yang Dingen is here to propose marriage to my junior sister, Fairy Ling." He had brought a lot of betrothal gifts, including a total of 10 saint weapons. There were also many divine elixirs and miraculous elixirs. There are also a few ancient scrolls in their sect's collection, which are related to some legacy secret realms. Oh, Fairy Ling is so lucky. Hearing this, Hua Xiangrong's pretty face froze slightly. She could not hide her shock and said with a faint smile, "The Thunder Yang sect was known for its fierce and violent lightning arts. Although its strength was slightly inferior to the ancient medicine hall and the Luoying sect, it was still one of the top 10 sects in the Saint Origin world. At its peak, it could even be ranked 6th. His status as a Zongzi was even more special, and he was expected to inherit the orthodoxy in the future. Yang Dingtian's strength might not be comparable to Lian Huahan, Fairy Qingjue, Gu Xian, and the others, but his status was the same. The authority and resources he possessed far exceeded the sect's core disciples, elite disciples, and even the hall masters and branch masters. Hua Xiangrong knew about Ling Er's background. It was rumored that she came from a galaxy outside the Milky Way, which was extremely destitute. In Hua Xiangrong's eyes, that galaxy didn't have any decent cultivation orthodoxies. It was very desolate, and it would be a compliment to say that it was a remote and desolate place. It was just like a primitive and uncivilized tribe. Furthermore, Huang Linger's bone frame wasn't very good. Although she had the second wood spirit root, it wasn't considered a saint-grade bone frame and could only be considered as a 9th grade. Therefore, Hua Xiangrong's heart was rather sour. She was much stronger than Huang Linger in all aspects, but she didn't have such a good partner. Our family's Huang Linger isn't bad either. At the side, a rather mischievous young cultivator laughed and said, "Renfringlio's latest 100-flower spectrum has been released. Junior Sister Ling is ranked 3rd in the 100-flower spectrum this time. She is only 2nd to Gu Xian and Fairy Qingjue. Little brat. Renfeng Lu is extremely bored. Instead of cultivating, he spends all his time wandering among the flowers, full of cosmetics. He is the most lascivious man in the world since ancient times. What kind of 100-flower spectrum, 10 beauties painting? If Senior Lien finds out, I'm afraid she will beat you up." Hua Xiangrong pointed her finger at the young cultivator's forehead and said coquettishly. Renfeng was also a famous eccentric in the Saint Origin world. His cultivation was not bad, and his strength was unfathomable. He had been in the God transformation realm for many years and even reached the sage realm. However, this person had no interest in cultivation. He was carefree and unrestrained, lazy and carefree. Every day, he would travel around and enjoy the scenery. What he liked most was to admire beautiful women, collect the images of beautiful women, and comment on their rankings. He would make jade slips such as 100 Flower Spectrum and 10 Beauties painting and sell them everywhere. In fact, the income from selling jade slips was not worth mentioning for a powerful figure like him. Of course, he did this kind of thing not for profit, but purely because of his interest. However, it had to be said that Renfenglio's aesthetic standard was indeed not bad, and his taste was very sharp. His evaluations of the 100 Flower Spectrum and 10 Beauties painting were very high in the major sections. There were even many male cultivators who would use this as an important reference when looking for a Dao companion. It was truly following the picture to find a good horse. Presumably, Yang Dingtian had seen Huang Linger's image on the 100 Flower Spectrum and was moved to propose marriage. In the early years, some female cultivators even bribed Renfeng with natural treasures in order to find a good husband. However, not only did Renfeng reject them, he even used the 100 Flower Spectrum to publicize their names and gave vicious comments, causing these female cultivators to be so ashamed that they wanted to die. However, Renfeng was so ruthless and selfless that it made the rankings of the 100 Flower Spectrum and the 10 Beauties painting even more authoritative and credible. There were even more admirers. I just take a look occasionally. That young cultivator scratched his head and laughed. At this moment, senior brother Xing's brows were tightly knitted as he softly sighed and said, "This 100 Flower Spectrum is also harmful." "Senior, why do you say so?" Hua Xiangrong asked. Once she is on the list, her attitude immediately changes. Senior Xing smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Junior Ling, you have seen senior sister before. She was originally modest and low-key, kind to others, and could even be said to resign herself to adversity. But after she was on the list, she actually rejected Yang Dingtian's proposal and even threatened to kill herself. Isn't this making things difficult for Master?" Senior Xing was just short of saying, "I gave her face, but she didn't want it." Hua Xiangrong was also very puzzled and said, "Yes, I really don't know what is going on with Huang Linger. Not to mention that Yang Dingtian is more than enough to match her. Even if he is an ordinary disciple, she shouldn't disobey the Saint Lady's decision of marriage. The Saint Lady brought her from a desolate place to the Saint Origin world. What kind of grace is this? I think Master dotes on her too much. If he punished her a few times according to the sect rules, she would know the pain. Let's see if she still dares to say no." That's right. Back then, the Saint Lady received help from Yang Dingtian's father and owes him a huge favor. That slut with the surname Huang doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. If she were to reject this marriage, wouldn't she be looking for trouble for Master? She is not sensible at all. She deserves to be killed. The other 3 female cultivators under Lian Huahun mocked and spoke viciously. Chapter 1966. Hua Xiangrong smiled but didn't say anything. In fact, they were jealous, insanely jealous. Although the Luoying sect's motto was to love with impartiality and non-aggression, all things were equal. But it was extremely rare to see someone like Saint Qianma who practiced it so deeply. Many disciples were just saying it, but they still had a deep prejudice against the sect in their hearts. They paid attention to bloodline and origin. When they met the strong, they would belittle themselves. When they met the weak, they would despise them. In the eyes of these female cultivators, Huang Linger was an extragalactic cultivator from the wild original star field and wasn't worthy of Yang Dingtian. However, these things didn't have much to do with her. After listening to them, she cupped her fist and bid farewell. Core disciples like Hua Xiangrong all had their own mountains and a few palaces as their training grounds. After taking the 3 sacred weapons, Hua Xiangrong still had to prepare for the trip to the Eastern Empire, such as selecting the disciples who would accompany her. Therefore, she didn't delay too much. Instead, she immediately used the escape technique and returned to her own training ground. From afar, she saw a female cultivator standing at the entrance of the training ground, motionless. Her figure was graceful and exquisite. Although she was wrapped in the loose core disciple robe, it still couldn't hide her graceful figure. Moreover, her facial features were delicate and pretty. Her beautiful face, without any makeup, was as clear and lustrous as ice jade. Her pair of clear and beautiful eyes were as bright as gems. Her simple hair bun was inserted with a jasper hairpin, and her neck was slender and snowy. "It's Huang Linger. Why did you come to my training ground?" Although Hua Xiangrong didn't have a deep relationship with Huang Linger was too beautiful and had a good reputation. She naturally knew her. Hua Xiangrong descended and walked to Huang Linger, who was less than 100 meters away. Huang Linger hadn't reacted yet. Her pair of beautiful eyes looked at a point in the distant void. She was motionless like a white jade statue. Cough cough. "I didn't know that Fairy Ling would come to my humble home. Please excuse me for not welcoming you." Hua Xiangrong coughed lightly and wanted to laugh. Huang Linger had a kind of infatuation. She was pure and natural and was very cute. It was like a deer in the forest, harmless to humans and animals. It could even be said that it lacked the vigilance that a cultivator should have. If Lian Huahun had not protected her well, she would have died many times over. She was kind to others, did not fight or snatch, and was indifferent to others. She was weak and pitiful, making others unable to help but feel a desire to protect her. Even though they were both women, Hua Xiangrong could not bring herself to hate her. Aya! Huang Linger was so scared that her whole body quivered, and she came back to her senses. Seeing clearly that it was Hua Xiangrong, Huang Linger took light steps forward, curtsied, and respectfully said, "Junior Martial Sister Huang Linger greets Senior Martial Sister Hua. I hope that Senior Sister will forgive me for my impoliteness for visiting so suddenly." She was beautiful to begin with, and the higher her cultivation, the stronger the natural aura on her body. Moreover, she often accompanied Saintess Lian Huahun by her side. After being carefully trained by Lian Huahun, her every move was graceful, beautiful, and natural. She was simply like a rare treasure. "Ling, you don't have to be so formal. We are all disciples of the Luoying sect. We are of the same breath and branch, and we support each other as close as brothers." Hua Xiangrong smiled and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" With a burst of intoxicating fragrance, Huang Linger walked to Hua Xiangrong, reached out her slender hand, and grabbed Hua Xiangrong's sleeve, which was as white as translucent mutton fat jade. She raised her pretty face slightly, and her clear eyes were full of sadness and expectation. She asked in a charming voice, "Senior Martial Sister Hua, your status in the sect is far higher than mine. I want to ask you for a favor. Can you help me read the image of Saint Siqing's brand?" The battle between Jiang Tian and the demonic dragon in the abyss was famous on the continent and shocked the world. Many sect masters of holy clans held him in high esteem, saying that he was the first person below the Saint of Void Return and unparalleled fighting power with the strength of a Saint of Void Return. They were not stingy with their praise. However, the specific battle image was classified as top-secret information by each sect. Without a certain status and identity, one was not qualified to read it at all. "Junior Martial Sister, do you want to see this person's cultivation method and fighting style?" Hua Xiangrong smiled slightly. Huang Linger nodded. Hua Xiangrong said, "That's right. This person's fighting power is indeed extraordinary. His physical body is strong, and his magic power is unpredictable. Watching his battle image is of great benefit to our cultivation and the improvement of our fighting awareness." Although she did not like Jiang Tian's overbearing style, she had to admit that Jiang Tian's strength was indeed terrible. She could not help sighing with emotion. "Master is right. All creatures are equal. Even a muddy pond can turn into a dragon's pond, and a carp can leap over the dragon's gate. Who would have thought that he, a rogue cultivator from the Black Sunstar region, has a foundation, talent, cultivation method, and fighting power that are far superior to us, the natives of the continent. Ah? He, Sage Xiqing, is he from the Black Sunstar region? The speaker did not mean it, but the listener took it seriously. Huang Linger trembled as if she had been struck by lightning. She grabbed Hua Xiangrong's sleeves tightly to prevent herself from falling to the ground. Junior Marshal Sister Ling, what's wrong with you? Hua Xiangrong looked over in surprise. Huang Linger's face was filled with sorrow and despair. 2 streams of tears rolled down her snow-white cheeks. With a swoosh, they dripped onto the jade-like enamel floor, sparkling and translucent like morning dew. It's not him. It's not him after all, Huang Linger murmured in her heart. Her mind was in a mess. Since that day when she was patrolling the territory of Mars, she was taken away from the solar system by her master, who had traveled the universe. After arriving in the Saint Origin world, she had been missing her hometown, her family, friends, and Jiang Tian all the time. Those grasses and trees, the streets of the city, the magnificent mountains and rivers, and the more profound things behind the mountains and rivers were hundreds of millions of light years away from her. They seemed to be separated by a vast galaxy of light years that could never be crossed. On the Saint Origin world, the spiritual chi was more abundant, like a waterfall. The Dharma was more condensed, and the Great Way was more tenacious. It could even be said that this land was more vast and magnificent. However, in Huang Linger's mind, she was like a creature that had lost the traction of the earth and gravity, floating in the universe. A creature that was as small as a speck of dust. In the past few years, she begged Lian Huahan again and again to let her go. She cried, knelt, and even tried to commit suicide by exploding her Yuan Ying. In the past few years, she was always worried about what would happen to the Earth under the invasion of the Big Dipper Demon Clan, and whether the human race on Earth would be extinct. She also did not know the result of Jiang Tian's expedition to the Immortal ruins, or whether he would die in that strange world. In the Luoying sect, she seemed to be free, but in fact, she was like a prisoner, living a life worse than death. Live you must live. No matter how difficult it is, you must live. As long as there's a glimmer of hope that Jiang Tian is still alive in this world, I can't die. She kept telling herself and encouraging herself. Since Jiang Tian was an immortal cultivator, he would definitely reach the central galaxy one day. According to her calculations, the Saint Origin world was also the path that Jiang Tian had to take to reach the central galaxy. She had to wait for him. Chapter 1967. Every time a cultivator from beyond the galaxy rose, Huang Linger would inquire about them carefully. In particular, the rise of Jiang Xiqing this time gave Huang Linger a glimmer of hope that she had never had before. Like telepathy, an inexplicable intuition told her that Jiang Tian was Jiang Xiqing. However, she didn't expect that she would be disappointed. Since Saint Xiqing came from the Black Sunstar area, she naturally couldn't be Jiang Tian. Besides, although Jiang Tian was talented, he couldn't have broken through so quickly and reached the Void Return realm or the power of a sage in just a few years. The most important thing was that her master also said that if a sage of Void Return realm wanted to cross the Sea of Stars, he would need a secret space treasure to cross the Sea of Stars in a few years. According to Lian Huahuan's observation, the cultivation civilization in the entire Milky Way didn't have the method and materials to refine a secret space treasure. The method could be made quickly, but the materials couldn't be made quickly. Jiang Tian couldn't have a secret space treasure in a short time. Alas, I was too wishful thinking. When Jiang Tian becomes a sage of Void Return and comes to this world, maybe my life will be exhausted and I will become an old woman with wrinkled skin and a crane head with shaking teeth. I can even say that I have already died and turned into a few dry bones and a slope of yellow soil. Huang Linger was out of her wits. She staggered away and forgot to say goodbye to Hua Xiangrong. What a weirdo! Could it be that Huang Linger and Jiang Xiqing know each other? Looking at Huang Linger's receding figure, Hua Xiangrong was suspicious and let her imagination run wild. But that's not right. The Black Sunstar area and the Milky Way galaxy are separated by countless galaxies in the Sea of Stars. Their cultivation is not high, and the key is that they don't have a secret space treasure. They are like butterflies that can't fly across the sea. How can they meet each other? Although Jiang Tian's fief was in Hanjiang City and other areas of Nanjiang, the national master was in charge of the imperial city. Jiang Tian sat side by side with elder princess Mou in the carriage and set off for the imperial city. Dongfang Ding sat with them in the lower seat. Dongfang Ying hugged Jiang Beibei, as if she was the big sister next door. The four dukes, as well as the other marquises, stood on both sides, respectfully seeing him off. As he passed by the people of the Lin mansion of the Zhenyuan Marquis. Farewell, imperial tutor. Lin Hanqing, the Zhenyuan Marquis, bowed deeply, his eyes brimming with tears. He really didn't understand. Why did Jiang Tian still choose to be a guest elder of the Lin family despite his heaven-defying strength and ability to stand shoulder to shoulder with the sect master of the Holy Lands and the sect master of the Holy Lands? Why did he do his best to resolve the crisis of the Lin family several times? It could be said that without Jiang Tian, the Lin clan would have long been toyed to death by Purple Marquis, destroyed under the iron hooves of the myriad demons' palace. Farewell, imperial tutor. Lin Yang even knelt on the ground, as if he was a senior. Take care. Jiang Tian turned his head and nodded with a faint smile. A deep look surfaced in his eyes. He knew that Dongfang Ding was trying to rope him in. For ordinary people, such a generous reward from Dongfang Ding would definitely win over people's hearts and make them loyal, willing to sacrifice their lives for Dongfang Ding. But in Jiang Tian's mind, these rewards from Dongfang Ding were not worth mentioning. After all, he had the chaotic divine body, the most powerful body in the universe, and what he pursued was a supreme realm. How transcendental and lofty was that? The treasures of heaven and earth, the mansions in the cities, and the titles of nobility in the mortal world were like passing clouds to him, and he didn't care about them at all. The Dongfang royal family and the Dongfang Empire combined were not as important as Lin Yang. After all, in his previous life, Lin Yang's family was destroyed and his Dao disappeared because of Jiang Tian. It doesn't matter how Dongfang Ding uses me. I spent a long time in this country in my previous life, and for me, this is also my hometown. As long as he doesn't hurt the Lin clan out of jealousy, I'm willing to do more for this country and its people. Jiang Tian sighed in his heart. The imperial capital was located in the central part of the empire. It was vast and stretched for hundreds of miles. If it weren't for the flying Dharma artifacts, it would take a few days to cross it on a horse. The majestic city walls were as tall as mountains. They were made of dark iron and divine stone and shone with a metallic luster. They were covered with the marks of swords and sabers, telling the vicissitudes and ancientness of history. There were city gates on all sides and they were 1,000 meters tall. According to different directions, they were carved into the images of divine beasts such as vermilion birds and black tortoises. They were majestic, ferocious, and mighty. Looking from afar, they gave people a sense of psychological oppression. In the sky was full of brilliance and colorful images, forming layers of shields. The waves of Dharma power were strong. This place was protected by a formation that could kill void return saints, and it was impregnable. Even a meteorite wouldn't be able to break through the shield. In the city, there were many tall buildings and the streets were wide. It was much more prosperous than the metropolises on Earth. People bustled about. Crystal shops, deity pavilion, wind moon palace, elixir palace, divine weapon pavilion. All kinds of businesses were here. It was extremely luxurious, and mortals and cultivators mingled. In the sky, there were flashes of light from time to time. Those were cultivators flying on swords. There were also royal guards flying past to monitor the city and prevent all kinds of illegal activities. In the sky and on the ground, people came and went. Half of the people in the sky were cultivators. In such a place, no one dared to be rash. They might accidentally knock down a descendant of a feudal lord. If they were unlucky, they might directly step on the foot of a big shot of the royal family. There were even elders of the sacred grounds here. Although the royal family was wary of the alliance between feudal lords and hidden sects, They were also good at learning from the hidden sects and asking them to teach their descendants. A large river flowed through the imperial city like a jade belt. The river water was so clear that one could see the bottom at a glance. The fish in the water seemed to be floating in the air without anything to rely on. The green water plants were also lush and cute. The water surface was as calm as a mirror, reflecting the blue sky and white clouds. There were shadows of people in the palace. Huge basin-sized hibiscus flowers were blooming, and white cranes rose and fell. Along the two sides of the river, there were bustling mansions from time to time. The halls were continuous, and the light of treasures flickered. Furthermore, he had set up a spirit-gathering formation. Streams of invisible spirit chi came from all directions like tentacles. The Kanglin River was the most important river in the imperial capital. There were several high-grade spirit springs in it. Mortals often drank from it, and their lifespan could be doubled. This river was also controlled by the imperial capital and was heavily guarded. The royal family, feudal lords, and ministers liked to set up their mansions on the two sides of the river. They rushed like ducks, wanting to occupy the land. It could even be said that only those powerful feudal lords and ministers had the opportunity to build mansions here. Ordinary people might not have the opportunity. Among the mansions, the one with the best location, the widest area, the densest spirit chi, and the most exquisite and unique building was the overlooking river mansion. It used to be the Crown Prince Mansion, and now it was the Grand Preceptor Mansion. Today, under the eyes of thousands, the Grand Preceptor Mansion finally welcomed its new master. Although a lot of red tape was avoided, Jiang Tian still felt tired and cumbersome when he met the Emperor, Eastern Lu, and other important members of the royal family. Accompanied by Crown Prince Dongfang Ding, he took the carriage to the overlooking river mansion. As soon as Jiang Tian got out of the carriage, he felt a familiar breath. He glanced around and saw Hua Xiangrong standing under the tall archway of the Grand Preceptor Mansion, surrounded by several practitioners, waiting for him. Chapter 1968. Jiang Tian shook his sleeves slightly, looked at Crown Prince Dongfang Ding, and said with a smile, "Hua Xiangrong is here. I wonder if your highness would condescend to meet her?" "She's here so soon?" Dongfang Ding's face changed dramatically, and the void around him suddenly blurred. That was the reason why the fluctuating Daoist heart caused the law to become unstable and interfered with the real space. "But, Dongfang Ding, you're a genius. The law you've condensed and controlled is of a high level. Since you can easily interfere with the space, it must be at least the 9th level, if not the divine level." Jiang Tian looked calm, but he was amazed in his heart. The Luoying sect is a famous and orthodox sect on the continent, with a noble status and great influence. "Of course, I have to meet them." Dongfang Ding smiled, but he was quite helpless in his heart. He originally thought that although the national master killed Su Xiaotang and offended the Luoying sect, he could at least use the national master to suppress the rebellious lords and wipe out the pantheon of demons. But he didn't expect the Luoying sect to come to denounce him so soon. However, Dongfang Ding was the crown prince of a country after all. He had received strict education and cruel training since childhood, so his mind was far stronger than that of ordinary people. The more flustered he was, the calmer he looked. With his hands clasped behind his back, he was majestic, without the slightest cowardice. He walked a few steps behind Jiang Tian. "How all the people in the world come for profit, and all the people in the world go for profit. The immortals in the 9 heavens are like this, so the emperors in the human world are no different from ordinary people. They are even worse, more cunning, insidious, and vicious. But it's okay for you to use me, but I will make you worry." Jiang Tian wanted to laugh, but he didn't show it on his face. With his big sleeves fluttering in the wind, he walked to Hua Xiangrong's side and said with a smile, "Fairy, long time no see." What a powerful hiding cultivation method." Hua Xiangrong turned around abruptly and saw the carriage and the guards of honor flying toward the mansion. She couldn't help but change her pretty face and shudder with fear. She stared at the Kanglin River in a daze just now, thinking about the mysterious and unimaginable strength of Jiang Tian and Huang Linger's strange reactions. But now that she had reached the divinity transformation stage, her spiritual awareness was extremely vast, and her senses were incredibly sharp. She had already spread out her spiritual awareness like an invisible fishing net as a warning. It could be said that within a radius of a few dozen miles, from the clouds in the sky, the primordial qi in the air, the laws and great Tao in the world, to the grass and trees swaying in the wind, the insects and birds crawling and flying, nothing could escape her senses. However, she actually didn't notice Jiang Tian, his treasured carriage, and his reliance at all. The treasured carriage had countless complicated symbols circulating about it. There were tens of thousands of materials, and the magical power was powerful and heterogeneous. There were over 100 attendants and guards with different bloodlines, cultivation levels, and auras. That made it even more complicated. But Jiang Tian actually used his own concealment technique to completely conceal himself, causing him to hide in the void, completely restrained. This concealment technique was unimaginably powerful. It could be said to be deceiving the heavens and concealing the earth. Fairy, have you come on this trip to take revenge for your moronic junior sister? Are you trying to make things difficult for me? Unfortunately, you don't deserve it. I can poke you to death with one finger. If your master, Saint Qianma, comes in person, she is barely worthy of my attack. Jiang Tian was like a celestial being who stood above the entire continent and looked down on the world. His eyes were filled with arrogance as he spoke with a fake smile. Next to him, the smile on Dongfang Ding's face collapsed rapidly like a landslide. He could no longer maintain it. He was so scared that he couldn't even stand. National Master, you don't have to trick me like this, do you? She can't defeat you, but if she wants to bully the Dongfang royal family and make trouble for us, it's as easy as taking something out of her pocket. Dongfang Ding wanted to cry but had no tears. Although Hua Xiangrong's strength was not as strong as Jiang Tian's, it was at least far stronger than the 4 dukes and elder princess Mou. This meant that if those hidden old monsters of the royal family didn't take action, she could wipe out the Dongfang Empire alone and be invincible. Hearing this, Hua Xiangrong was also furious for a moment. She was so angry that her plump chest rose and fell violently, and her nose was also slightly twitching. Jiang Xiqing is simply too arrogant. It's fine that she doesn't take me seriously, but she even disrespects my master. The cultivators who came with him were even more flabbergasted. They had long heard that Jiang Tian was domineering and arrogant, and they had made all kinds of mental preparation and construction, but they didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so domineering. However, thinking of her master's terrible evaluation of Jiang Tian, Hua Xiangrong also forced herself to calm down, bent her knees, and saluted lightly. I'm not seeking revenge or provocation. That Su Xiaotang is really stupid and violated the ancestral teachings of our sect, so she was killed by Saint Xiqing. She deserved it. She spoke softly, like a gentle breeze and drizzle, giving a comfortable feeling like a spring breeze, and her attitude was very modest. Seeing that Jiang Tian's expression seemed to be eased, Hua Xiangrong's attitude became more humble, and she said softly, My master, Saint Qianma, learned that you are noble and upright. You killed Marquis Purple Robe, quelled the rebellion of the empire, and protected the people. Killing Su Xiaotang upholds the doctrine of the Luoying sect, and also upholds the reputation of my master and the integrity of the sect. Therefore, not only does she not blame you, but she is also very grateful. She specially sent 3 holy weapons and 10 holy elixirs to express her gratitude. She also congratulates you on becoming the national master of the empire. Noble character and unquestionable integrity, upright and outspoken, protecting the common people, 3 holy weapons, 10 holy elixirs to express her gratitude as a congratulatory gift. Next to them, Dongfang Ding was completely dumbfounded. He was no longer as handsome and extraordinary as he used to be. The air of an emperor had long since disappeared into thin air. He was like a 3-year-old kid who got a lot of candy and long-desired gifts during a festival. He was so excited that he trembled all over, and his face was filled with boundless ecstasy. It was no exaggeration to say that his face was bursting out. This feeling was like riding a roller coaster, suddenly going straight to the ninth heaven to catch the moon, and suddenly falling straight to the ninth hell. It was too exciting. Then, it would be impolite of me to refuse. Jiang Tian directly reached out with a smile. Don't change your face too quickly. Don't be so smooth and natural, like two masks that you can change at will. Hua Xiangrong and other disciples of the Luoying sect were all stunned and couldn't believe it. When you see natural treasures and holy weapons, you change your attitude. He doesn't have the demeanor of a master at all. I've never seen such a shameless person. Lingering in the mortal world, unbearable vulgarity, greed, anger, and infatuation, his Taoist heart should be broken. How could he cultivate into a deity-grade nascent soul and have the strength of a sage? He is simply a lucky bastard. Could it be that he is just lucky? Is this the legendary son of heaven, the son of destiny? But looking at Jiang Tian's outstretched hand, everyone was convinced that everything in front of them was true. For a moment, they were crazily complaining in their hearts. Chapter 1969. Hua Xiangrong looked at Jiang Tian in a daze. Jiang Tian's face was calm, and his eyes were deep with obvious time accumulation. There was no flicker in his eyes, showing his firm heart, but they were also very clear and transparent, like a gem that had been polished to become rounder and brighter. I see. His mortal aura is lingering. If he wants to turn into a god, he has to turn into a mortal first, just like rejuvenating and returning to nature. He's clearly an old monster who has lived for a long time, a terrifying almighty being, but he's still pure and innocent. Only now did Hua Xiangrong feel the strange charm of Jiang Tian. This kind of charm was based on experience and strength. Moreover, Hua Xiangrong realized that Jiang Tian began to turn into a mortal, using the mortal world to sharpen his mind and strengthen his connection with the mortal world. He was probably only one step away from the god transformation realm. Jiang Tian's combat power was already so incredible when he was in the nascent soul realm. He could even kill the abyss demon dragon who had the strength of a saint of void return. Once he broke through to the god transformation realm, it would be another qualitative change, like a fish leaping over the dragon gate, reaching the sky in one step. By then, Jiang Tian would be invincible among his peers. He might be able to defeat all the god transformation realm cultivators and even easily suppress the saints of void return. Thinking of this, Hua Xiangrong was more and more shocked. Don't just talk about it. Where are the gifts? Jiang Tian urged. Sir, my sect is a holy sect, and my master, Saint Qianma, is a person who keeps her promises. How can I go back on my words? Hua Xiangrong smiled slightly. After that, she made a gesture with her fingers, and her face was slightly red. She seemed to have used all her strength to take out 3 divine weapons and a bottle of elixir. Swish! Before the vast power of the 3 divine weapons spread out, Jiang Tian waved his hand and put the 3 divine weapons and elixir into the sleeve of his wide robe. Is this the legendary heaven and earth in the sleeve? Creating a cave? He's too strong. He erased the imprint with just a flick of his finger and left behind his own spiritual imprint. Hua Xiangrong and others were shocked again, and there was a storm in their hearts. They admired Jiang Tian to the extreme. The numinous treasure already had its own consciousness. He had to refine it several times and merge it with his soul before he could reach the level of being one with it. Only then would he be able to manipulate it as he wished. Not to mention a saint weapon that was several levels higher. In order to ensure the safety of sending the 3 divine weapons to Jiang Tian, not only did Saint Qianma's divine sense brand remain in the divine weapons, but before they set off, Hua Xiangrong also spent half a month to refine her divine sense brand in the weapons. This was like adding a few unbreakable password locks, but Jiang Tian actually erased the imprint with a raise of his hand and opened the password lock. This was simply like the help of God, unbelievable. This woman is an extraordinary woman. She is extraordinary and has a great vision. Jiang Tian accepted the holy weapon and started to have a good impression of Saint Qianma. Unlike Su Xiaotang and others who only took the doctrines of the Luoying sect as a mantra, Saint Qianma sincerely practiced those doctrines that seemed to be open and above board but also seemed to be too big to be proper. She did not discount the doctrines. In every organization and every civilization, there were some mainstays to maintain order and ensure the healthy operation of the body. Saint Qianma's vision had long surpassed the small families, countries, and even the hidden sections. She was fighting for this continent. However, Jiang Tian would not think too much. He just had deep feelings for the Eastern Empire, or to be exact, the Lin family of Marquesian. What else does your master want to say? Jiang Tian looked at Hua Xiangrong. My master hopes to join forces with you to suppress the pantheon of demons. Hua Xiangrong said concisely. Crown Prince Dongfang Ding was overjoyed when he heard this. The pantheon of demons had always been a threat to the empire. However, it was too powerful. With the original strength of the empire, it was impossible to destroy it. Now, with Jiang Tian and the help of the Luoying sect, it was almost a sure win. Good. That's exactly what I want. Jiang Tian clapped his hands and said leisurely, the conflict between the pantheon of demons and the empire and even the Saint Origin continent is not as simple as the conflict between different races. It's the conflict between good and evil. The pantheon of demons has been corrupted by devil qi. If they don't kill, they will bring disaster to the entire continent and billions of people. Tell your master that I'll wait for the good news. Yes, Master Nation. Hua Xiangrong said goodbye and left. However, when she was about to fly away, she suddenly stopped, turned around, and asked with a frown, Sir, do you know a rogue cultivator named Wang Lin from the Milky Way? No, I don't know her. Jiang Tian's face was as calm as an ice sculpture. His eyes were like a dry well without any ripples. I think that Wang Lin must have made a mistake. Hua Xiangrong smiled apologetically. Who is she? What mistake did she make? Jiang Tian asked calmly. The Saint Origin continent was the only way to reach the central galaxy from the Milky Way. Who knew if the immortal monarch would go crazy and occasionally take a look at the Saint Origin continent? The immortal monarch lived in the 9 heavens and overlooked all the worlds. He could see the stars as clearly as he could see the lines on his palm. He could trace the past and deduce the future. He was almost omniscient. In short, it was better to be safe than sorry. Since the day he became Jiang Xiqing, he had nothing to do with his homeland. This woman is the same as Master Nation. She comes from the Milky Way, which is even more desolate. She is now the disciple of Lian Huahan, the saintess of my sect, Hua Xiangrong said truthfully. Recently, Renfenglio's 100 Flowers chart was released. This woman is ranked 3rd among the top 10 beauties of the Saint Origin continent. Another young male disciple interrupted excitedly. She is really famous. If one day I can see her face, it will be wonderful. Jiang Tian's eyes lit up. He had a very interested look on his face, which was in line with his worldly and unbearably vulgar persona. Ahem. It's not a problem now, but it will be difficult in the future. That young male disciple suddenly felt that Jiang Tian's vulgarity was very cute and easy to get close to. He smiled and said, Thunder Yang Sec's Zongzi Yang Dingtian proposed marriage to Fairy Ling, with a generous gift a few days ago. Master Lian Huahan has agreed to the engagement. This is what you don't understand. Although the famous flower is taken, I will loosen the soil. Not to mention that she is just engaged, even if she is officially married and becomes a Dao companion, we still have a chance. Jiang Tian smiled naughtily, like old Wang next door. His eyes were restrained, and his emotions were hidden. No one noticed that his eyes were overflowing with monstrous killing intent. Wang Lin. This was a girl who made him feel a little bit of pain and guilt whenever he mentioned her. He had never forgotten her. This girl who was entangled with him in both his previous and current lives. This girl who was infatuated with him but never entangled with him. She was devoted to him but always hid in the dim places outside the spotlight, silently caring and supporting him. The current him already had a hard time defining his feelings for Wang Lin. It might not be the feelings between a man and a woman, but it was much deeper and heavier than this. He naturally knew of Jiang Tian. In fact, There weren't many people who knew this person better than Jiang Tian. He was proficient in the art of plucking and used female cultivators as his cauldron. He was extremely vicious. Once he dual cultivated, the woman's cultivation would plummet, and she might even die. As the Thunderyang sect's Zongzi, Jiang Tian was naturally someone who couldn't be provoked easily. Furthermore, Jiang Tian still had to conceal his whereabouts and avoid the search and observation of the Nine Heavens Immortal World's giants. If it wasn't necessary, Jiang Tian naturally wouldn't seek trouble for himself. However, since Jiang Tian had designs on Huang Linger, then he had to provoke him. Yang Dingan had to die. The Thunder Yang sect had to be eliminated. At this moment, Jiang Tian had already sentenced them to death in his heart. Chapter 1970. National Preceptor, your actions are really as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. You can go anywhere you want, but you are also as unpredictable as white clouds and gray dogs. This humble one is truly in awe. That disciple of the Luoying sect naturally did not notice Jiang Tian's mood and smiled awkwardly but politely. After Hua Xiangrong left, Jiang Tian finally stepped into this luxurious mansion. Crown Prince Dongfang Ding accompanied him respectfully and introduced the scenery and unique ingenuity of each place. The entire National Preceptor's mansion covered an area of 20 miles. It was luxurious and continuous. Every building was extremely exquisite, engraved with exquisite runes and inlaid with exquisite magic stones, which had many functions such as gathering spiritual energy, clearing the mind, nourishing the body, defense, and so on. The light of treasures was dazzling, and the sky was full of light. Clouds were rising, and the dense spiritual qi was like a celestial palace descending to the human world. Stepping into it, people would feel refreshed and energetic. Everywhere in the garden, there were winding corridors connected to each other. Rockery and strange rocks were arranged in a picturesque manner. Clear and bright lakes were like gemstones. Ancient peach trees that were thousands of years old were planted in the surroundings. Vines as thick as an arm snaked around, and orchids swayed gently in the wind. Streams flowed over the clean stones like jade belts. A few palace maids were frolicking by the side of the stream, letting out waves of bell-like laughter. Under the sunlight, their fair and tender feet reflected a dazzling light like white jade. Seeing Jiang Tian and the Crown Prince passing by, they hurried ashore, stood respectfully with hands behind their backs, and said with fear and uneasiness, "Greetings, National Preceptor, Crown Prince. These palace maids are carefully selected from all over the country by my subordinates. They are not only young and beautiful, but also have vital yin. If you cultivate with them by plucking them, you can balance yin and yang and strengthen your foundation. They are specially presented by me to you. Come, greet the National Preceptor." After the disciples of the Luoying sect left, Dongfang Ding regained his usual temperament and confidence, and introduced them with joy. These palace maids were either cute, witty, or charming. They were in their budding years and were at the most beautiful, natural, and clean age for women. Moreover, they all had extraordinary physiques, with smooth skin and jade bones, and exuded an ecstatic natural fragrance. Greetings, National Preceptor. I am Chunha. Greetings, National Preceptor. I am Cherry. Your servant is Jade Rabbit. This servant is Soft Fragrance. Hearing Dongfang Ding's words, these palace maids all curtsied and stepped forward to greet him. Some of them blushed, feeling extremely embarrassed and bashful. Some of them raised their eyebrows and boldly gazed at Jiang Tian. Their gazes were fiery, like a beautiful rose in full bloom, ostentatious and charming. Some were as gentle as water, completely obedient, allowing Jiang Tian to do whatever he wanted. The Crown Prince is too considerate. Jiang Tian laughed and glanced at the group of women. He nodded slightly in appreciation, which was in line with his image of a person who was obsessed with pleasure. State Preceptor, it's not right for you to address me in such a manner. You are an otherworldly expert, the savior of the Eastern Empire, the pillar of the empire. I see you as my teacher, so I should greet you as a disciple. Dongfang Ding's tone was humble, as if he was terrified. Ding, what's wrong with you? The state preceptor is an otherworldly expert, aloof from worldly affairs, and doesn't get close to women. Aren't you disturbing his peace and dirtying his eyes by bringing these vulgar powders over? Right at this moment, a delicate shout that carried anger sounded out from the forest by the lake. The lake was clear and bright, covered in a riot of falling petals and a rain of flowers. On the shore were expanses of thousand-year-old peach trees that were extremely dense and covered in bright-colored dresses. The peach blossoms danced, and the entire lake was covered in a layer of pink. Waves of fragrance drifted over and refreshed the mind. The sparkling and translucent rain of flowers sprinkled down like red clouds and pink mist, enveloping the lake. It was extremely beautiful and beautiful, as if it was a paradise. Of course, this wasn't the most important thing. The most striking thing was that there were over 10 beautiful young girls bathing in the lake. Their black hair was like a waterfall, their lotus-like arms were like mist and snow, and their translucent jade bodies flickered with an alluring luster. Compared to the rain of flowers that filled the sky, they were even more attractive. They were even more alluring and charming than the young girls that were washing their feet by the stream. Following this shout, the young girls were so scared that they all wrapped themselves in gauze and entered the peach forest. Following the small path, they fled in panic. Her graceful and alluring body was faintly discernible, unable to be blocked at all. It was extremely tempting. However, the beautiful scenery didn't last long and quickly disappeared. Ant Ding knows his wrongs. Dongfang Ding was so scared that his entire body trembled. You really care too much. Who said I don't get close to women? I was planning to use these women to tempt my Dao heart and temper my consciousness. Crown Prince, you've done well. Corrode me to your heart's content. Jiang Tian, on the other hand, chuckled as he looked at Grand Princess Mou who had come through the forest. The Imperial Advisor is an expert who has achieved the Dao. His heart is like a mirror, like refined steel, clear and tough. Why would he need such a tempering? Grand Princess Mou's beautiful face was covered in frost. Her eyes were cold, as if she wanted to tell the whole world that she was unhappy. As for Dongfang Ying, she followed behind him and stuck out her tongue at Jiang Tian, hinting that Jiang Tian had just gotten quite angry with the Grand Princess. Greetings, Grand Princess. Greetings, little princess. The palace maids were so scared that their faces turned pale and their delicate bodies trembled. All of them kept quiet out of fear and did not dare to breathe loudly. They were even more nervous than facing Jiang Tian and the Crown Prince. Look, you scared the children. Jiang Tian had a helpless look on his face as he waved his hand to dismiss the palace maids. Halt! However, Grand Princess Mou shouted coldly. Sir, the group of palace maids were so scared that their delicate bodies trembled slightly. They were about to cry and were about to cry. Grand Princess Mou strolled over, her dignified gaze sweeping across the palace maids, and said coldly, Mr. Imperial Advisor is busy with state affairs and has a myriad of matters to attend to every day. Remember, no one is allowed to disturb Lord Imperial Advisor. If I find out which little hussy dares to charm the Imperial Advisor and delay the Empire's important matters, kill without mercy. Yes, sir. This servant will remember Grand Princess's orders. This time, the palace maids were so scared that they immediately burst into tears. Mou was the Empire's female war god, the commander of the army, an existence that killed people like scything flax. In their hearts, that was simply too terrifying. Charm. It's just a bunch of children. Jiang Tian was rather helpless. That might not be the case. Lord Imperial Advisor's charm is extraordinary. These girls are in love for the first time, so it's inevitable that they would have improper thoughts. A meaningful smile appeared at the corner of Mou's mouth, as if he was proud of himself. I can't control you, Saint Siqing, but can I control these little girls? In the next moment, Grand Princess Mou's expression suddenly turned serious, and she said, Lord Imperial Advisor, women are just a small matter. After this matter is over, I will personally help you choose a few stunning women, all of whom are at the nascent soul stage. "Aunt, are we going to start now?" Dong Fong Ding, who had always been calm, actually had a hint of nervousness on his face. He was asking Grand Princess Mou, but his gaze was fixed on Jiang Tian. "There's no time to lose. Strike while the iron is hot." Jiang Tian's expression also became solemn, and he said seriously, "After the battle of the purple-robed marquis at this moment, the prestige of the country is unprecedentedly heavy. And once this opportunity is missed, then the vassals are likely to look for backers." Previously, when the purple-robed marquis looked for the pantheon of demons, who knows if the other vassals will look for other backers, such as the Thunder Yang sect or the Tian Luo sect. Therefore, tonight the imperial advisor will hold a housewarming banquet and release the military power with a cup of wine. The vassals will hand over their fiefs and titles, and according to their merits, they will be conferred as ministers and generals. The fief system will be changed to the county system, and the hereditary system will be changed to the official appointment system. Those who disobey will be killed without mercy. Chapter 1971. Then, I'll go to the Duke's mansion to pass the order. Princess Mou attached great importance to this matter and wanted to personally pass the order to the Duke's mansion. Every duke had set up a temporary mansion in the imperial capital. Moreover, 99% of them lived along the Kanglin River. This was a recognized land of spirit veins. How could the Duke miss it? Of course, they also had real mansions in their fiefs. However, the hidden dragon trials were approaching, and the dukes and disciples had come from all over the country to gather in the imperial capital and live in the temporary mansions in the imperial city. "No. Let Gu Chuandong handle this matter," Jiang Tian said in a deep voice. "When a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven." Moreover, Gu Chuandong was not a chicken or dog, but Jiang Tian's fellow countryman in the Black Sun Star Field. Now that Jiang Tian had become the Grand Tutor, how could Gu Chuandong not benefit from it? He was now the butler of the Grand Tutor's mansion. Soon, Gu Chuandong walked over and bowed respectfully. "Grand Tutor, you summon me. What orders do you have?" "Go to the various dukes' mansions and inform them that there will be a banquet tonight at the Grand Tutor's mansion. A certain cup of wine will be served to entertain guests from all over and discuss matters of loyalty to the imperial family. No duke is allowed to be late. Anyone who disobeys will be beheaded," Jiang Tian said casually. After a pause, Jiang Tian said, "Also, give a jade slip to Jinyuan Ho." Yes. This jade slip was actually Jiang Tian's decision to change the fief system to a county system, and asked Jinyuan Ho to be prepared and cooperate fully. "Yes, I understand." Gu Chuandong was excited and full of confidence. So excited that the fat all over his body was trembling. Jiang Tian had displayed the power of a saint, and his achievements were brilliant, shocking the empire and making his name known throughout the continent. In the empire, he was second only to one person. Who dared to disobey him? As Jiang Tian's #1 henchman, how could he not be happy to be able to show off in front of the Duke and hold his head high? "Big Black, you go do something too." Jiang Tian smiled as he looked at the large black dog in the pond. Suddenly, his expression darkened, and the corners of his eyes twitched. He gritted his teeth and said, "If you don't exercise, you'll be so fat that you won't be able to run anymore." This brat washed himself until he was shiny and slippery. He picked a huge lotus leaf as a boat and laid on it. He wore sunglasses made from black crystals and comfortably sunbathed. He was already making heavy snoring sounds. He simply didn't know how to enjoy himself. Jiang Tian's foundation in the empire became more and more solid, and the large black dog's life also became better and better. Every day, he would eat a bucket of spirit pills, and his body was round and plump. His stomach was almost touching the ground. Most importantly, this kid was becoming more and more timid. Previously, when the people from the Lin Mansion and Jiang Beibei were besieged by the demons, this brat had said that, in the chaos, he didn't follow the young mistress and took the wrong path. In fact, he had run away by himself. "Master, what are you saying? I'm very thin and weak now. I think I'll need to increase the amount of food I eat every day." 1 bucket of spirit pills isn't enough. I'll need 5 buckets. You're not wrong. It's good to be a little fatter. Put in half a kilogram of dragon blood and cup 3 kilograms of dragon meat for Bebe. The little girl is still growing, Jiang Tian said with a smile. Jiang Bebe's physique was special. Her growth speed was extremely slow, and even her mental development was like that of a child. However, the large black dog had the bloodline of the purple gold true dragon, and his flesh was a great supplement. Jiang Tian often drained his blood and cut his meat for Jiang Bebe to eat behind her back. As a true dragon, his recovery ability was amazing. The large black dog would immediately return to his original state, so Jiang Bebe didn't notice from beginning to end. Otherwise, she would definitely cry. She's a wet nurse, I'm a blood daddy. Every time the large black dog cut his meat and let his blood flow, he would exaggeratedly cry out in pain and wail. Master, I'll go right now and train. At this moment, when he heard Jiang Tian's words, the large black dog immediately stood up in fright. Then, with a shake of his body, he transformed into a young man with long arms and legs. He had prominent horns on his head, dark skin, cunning and lively eyes. He had long reached the nascent soul stage and could transform into a human. However, he was especially lazy and unwilling to use his magic power. He often maintained the natural form of the large black dog. He even forgot that he was originally a true dragon. Bring the advisor's token. Jiang Tian threw a token to him. But Big Black strode away. The residence of the Duke of the Northern Frontier in the Imperial City was filled with the exotic atmosphere of the land of ice and snow in the extreme north. It was made of 10,000-year-old ice jade collected from the ice spring of the North Sea. It exuded a strong cold air and had a strong fluctuation of ice and snow. The area within a radius of 5 kilometers was covered in frost and snow. In the back garden, there were many jade palaces. It was like a world of ice and jade. Above the orchids, there were sparkling ice strips, and above the pine and cypress, there were fluffy snowballs. The wind and snow blew, and the branches and leaves swayed. Beautiful silver bars and snowballs fell to the ground, and the snowflakes fluttered in the wind. Reflecting the bright sunlight, the snowflakes formed a colorful rainbow. In the midst of the wind and snow, a young man about 16 or 17 years old was flying in the air, practicing a cultivation technique. With a wave of his hand, the ice and snow law condensed and understood everything in the world, cutting off all vitality. Even the nascent soul could be disintegrated. It was by Zhanyan. The young duke is really a genius of the empire. Last time, the young duke was seriously injured by advisor Siqing. His dantian was broken and his cultivation was destroyed. It seemed that he could no longer reconstruct his dantian and became immortal. Unexpectedly, the young duke's constitution was extraordinary and his talent was extraordinary. He actually repaired his dantian with the help of 3 sky-mending pills and quickly ascended to the nascent soul stage. At the side, led by Wang Lin, several elders of the Bai clan, as well as the invited experts and experts, would occasionally give pointers. Other than Wang Lin, who was expressionless and worried, the other elders could not hide the admiration on their faces. Recently, a few major events had happened in the empire. First, the sky-mending pill and other pills of the ancient medicine hall in Icebound City were sold. The effect of the sky-mending pill was earth-shattering. It could reconstruct a broken dantian and repair the golden core. It even had a certain effect on nascent souls and gods. With this pill, not only did the ancient medicine hall's Icebound City branch earn a lot of money, but it also defeated the Fragrant Medicine Hall and a few other small alchemy sects, as well as their subordinate trading companies, to the point that they were unable to make ends meet. Next, the ancient medicine hall was preparing to promote this pill to all its branches in the Saint Origin world. It was said that landlord Wang of the Fragrant Medicine Hall washed his face with tears every day. He was so anxious that his mouth was full of blisters. In the long run, he would definitely lose all his family business. He was looking for cooperation. He wanted to merge the Fragrant Medicine Hall into a divine sect of a sacred ground and become an alchemy hall. In other words, the ancient medicine hall would acquire the entire Fragrant Medicine Hall. Although Jiang Tian had told the ancient medicine hall to ban the Bai family, the ancient medicine hall had no intention of doing so. The ancient medicine hall had indeed terminated their cooperation with the Bai family. However, the Bai family was a duke family after all. They were rich in assets and had extensive connections. They had also bought the 3 sky-mending pills from other families and sections. After Bai Zhanyun took them, the effects were indeed shocking. He was overjoyed. After he had practiced a complete set of cultivation techniques, Bai Zhanyun landed on the ground and bowed respectfully and nervously. "Father, seniors, please give me some pointers." The young duke has reached the peak again and broken through to the nascent soul realm. This time, there is hope for him to take the first place in the hidden dragon trials. A soul formation expert said with a smile. He was very pleased with himself. That's right. The young duke's domineering and tyrannical strength is completely inherited from you. This time, we have really brought honor to our ancestors. The glory of our Bai family can continue. The other instructors were also full of praise. However, there was no trace of joy on the Duke of the Northern Frontiers Bai Xinlin's chiseled face. Instead, he frowned and sighed worriedly. This kid has offended the Imperial Advisor. How can he take the first place? As long as he can keep his title and land, I will be satisfied. With the Imperial Advisor here, the one who will take the first place will definitely be that kid from the Lin family. It won't be his turn. Chapter 1972. In the long years, there were several nomadic and hunting tribes in the Beijiang territory. Their people were tough and they coveted the beautiful water and grass of the empire. They formed a royal family and trained troops to invade the territory of the Beijiang territory many times. Therefore, the Beijiang territory was known as the place of war and the flames of war never stopped. Xian Lin, the current duke of the Beijiang territory, killed enemies at the age of 10. He destroyed the Liuxiong tribe in the northeast misty forest, destroyed the 6 nations in the northwest icefield, slaughtered more than 70 cities, crossed the Arctic Ocean, went straight to the enemy's den and killed 30 cities of the Snowdance Empire. He fought all his life and shocked an entire dynasty. He was even more famous than Duke Jinlong of the Nanhe territory. He was as strong as a dragon, arrogant and domineering. He was never weaker than others. But at this moment, when he talked about Jiang Tian, he showed a deep fear and his tone was full of helplessness. The others were all silent and didn't say a word. When Bai Zhanyun's Dantian was injured, it could be said that the Bai family was enraged and they wanted to tear Jiang Tian into pieces. A rogue cultivator from outside the river, a servant of the Lin mansion, who was he? How dare a lowly person attack the young lord? But after Jiang Tian displayed his terrifying strength, everyone gave up on the idea. He could even kill the ancient divine beast, the abyss demon dragon. Even if the soul formation cultivators of the Bai family worked together, how could they be Jiang Tian's match? Although the empire was particular about order and there were royal families, dukes, officials and generals, there was an order based on hierarchy. But after all, the empire was founded on martial arts. It paid attention to strength and the strong were recruited and used, giving merits and official positions. Powerful strength could break the order of seniority and allow mortals to rise up. Jiang Tian was now the grand preceptor, second only to one person and above thousands of people. He was equal to the emperor. According to the rules, even the crown prince and the other juniors of the royal family had to greet him as a disciple. Even dukes and dukes had to greet him as if he was the emperor. When Bai Zhanyun heard this, his body trembled. With a face full of shame, he said, "Father, your son was rash back then." After he repaired his dantian, he was once filled with lofty aspirations. He thought that one day he would be able to catch up and suppress Jiang Tian. He even wanted to kill Jiang Tian for revenge. After all, Jiang Tian was a nascent soul realm cultivator, and he would soon reach the peak of the nascent soul realm. The effect of this pill is too good. Later on, when he learned that the sky-mending pill he had consumed was actually created by the Hall of Ancient Medicine using Jiang Tian's pill formula, he immediately became dispirited, and his fighting spirit plummeted. It's actually Jiang Xiqing's pill formula. At that time, Bai Zhanyun's mood could be described as hopeless. The effects of this pill were so heaven-defying that the ancient medicine hall would probably worship him as if he were a celestial being from the 9 heavens. Not to mention that it was difficult for him to kill Chen Shi. Even if he did, would the ancient medicine hall let the matter rest? Cutting off someone's path to wealth was like killing their parents. The secular world was like that. Although the secluded sects seemed to be high and mighty, they were not exempt from the secular world. Cultivation relied on materials, resources, and spiritual objects of heaven and earth. Otherwise, why would the secluded sects set up outer sects to run businesses and plunder wealth? Why were most of the sect missions about killing monsters, seizing treasures, exploring, and searching for items? The Hall of Ancient Medicine would definitely take revenge on him. Not to mention that he was only a marquis. Even the crown prince and the emperor would not be able to stop them. After hearing about Jiang Tian's earth-shattering battle at the 100 Flowers Peak, Bai Zhanyun was scared out of his wits. He was shrouded in fear and could not eat or sleep well. He was awakened by nightmares several times. It felt as if he had thought that the other party was a wild dog on the side of the road that had casually kicked him. However, when he took a closer look, he realized that the other party was actually an evil dragon that could devour the heavens and the earth. He barely managed to escape. Who would have thought that that thing would transform into a primordial beast? It was simply terrifying. At that moment, 2 streaks of light, one black and one gray, flashed across the sky and appeared above the Beijiang Duke residence. The streaks of light suddenly landed and turned into a fat middle-aged cultivator and a sly-looking black-faced youth. Several cultivators who were on guard around the residence hurriedly flew into the sky and flew over. They were fully armed and filled with murderous intent. They questioned coldly, "Who dares to barge into the Beijiang Duke residence's restricted area? Leave quickly, or you will be killed without mercy." "I am Guochuandong, the steward of the Grand Tutor's residence." Guochuandong's fat face did not change. He pointed at the humanoid purple-gold true dragon beside him and said, "This is the Grand Tutor's disciple, the special envoy, Jiang Dahe. Please forgive us for our offense." When the guards heard that, their expressions changed drastically. They landed one after another and knelt on the ground. Bai Xinlin's face was filled with joy. He tidied his clothes and led the important people of his family to quickly welcome them. He cupped his fists intimately and said with a smile, "Ha, so it is Brother Jiang and Brother Jiang who have graced my humble abode with your presence. Please come in quickly. Your presence brings light to my humble abode and brings light to my family's lintel." "Duke, you are too polite." Guochuandong was so excited that the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. The fat all over his body shook. Too good. This is simply too good to be true. It was as if he had taken a bunch of elixirs in a row. His whole body was light as if he was about to ascend. Who is he? So he is just a rogue cultivator from outside the river, an out-and-out pariah. When he first came to the mainland, he was worried that he would not even be able to get a household registration and find a place to stay. He would be stranded outside the city and suffer from demon beasts, demonic energy, and evil spirits. He did not expect that following Jiang Tian, he could actually make an important person of the empire, a dignified duke, call him brother. "Come, brothers. Since you are here, you can't leave so easily. Go in and drink a cup of wine. Find a few beautiful women and dance. You have all worked hard to quell the Purple Marquis's rebellion. We 3 brothers will enjoy ourselves." Bai Xianlin had the air of an ambitious and ruthless person. He could sweep across the world and slaughter tens of thousands of soldiers with his sword. He could also be humble and get closer to people, calling them brothers. "Beauties, those are for eating. What's the point of dancing?" Dahe had a look of disinterest. He wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and said, "Let's have a batch of elixirs." How can mere elixirs be worthy of my brother Dahe's noble status? At least a heavenly elixir, and at least 3 batches. Brother Dahe, I can tell at a glance that you are a brave person who is good at fighting, so your appetite is naturally big. As the saying goes, the greater the ability, the greater the appetite. Bai Xianlin was very generous as soon as he made a move. He was very generous and had spent a lot of money. The elders of the Bai family next to him all showed an extremely pained expression. One had to know that the so-called elixirs were for golden core cultivators. As for heavenly elixirs, they were for nascent soul cultivators. They were extremely rare and precious. 3 batches of heavenly elixirs were simply priceless. The annual harvest of a marquis's fief and city might not even be this much. Even if the Duke of Beijiang's harvest was better, it would still take several months of income. The greater the ability, the greater the appetite? Interesting and very correct. Dahei only felt that it was very pleasant to hear. He patted Bai Xianlin's shoulder and said with a smile, "My master once said that the Duke of Beijiang has not paid tribute for 100 years and is stingy and cunning. I don't think so. You are very generous, at least much more generous than my master. He always asks me to lose weight. My master once said that you have the appearance of an emperor and that you are ambitious. You think highly of yourself and have great ambitions. You have a disloyal heart. I don't think that is the case. You are amiable and friendly. How could you have a disloyal heart?" Next to him, Guochuandong's forehead was sweating and his body was tense. "Brother Dahei, can you be more careful with your words?" Just these few words could arouse Bai Xianlin's rebellious heart. Who knows, he might start a rebellion right away. "Oh Lord State Preceptor, did you really say that about me?" The smile on Bai Xianlin's face gradually stiffened and his face became gloomy. Chapter 1973. Of course. Dahei stared at him with a faint smile and a calm look on its face. At this moment, the atmosphere suddenly froze and the entire place fell into a strange silence. Only the whistling of the wind was left. Even the sound of snow falling could be heard clearly. An invisible killing intent slowly spread out, cold and heavy. Guochuandong suddenly felt suffocated, as if his heart was about to explode and his blood was about to freeze. His eyes were filled with horror and his soul was trembling. His face suddenly turned pale. Lord Imperial Tutor thinks too highly of me." Suddenly, Bai Xianlin looked up to the sky and laughed loudly. "My aptitude is mediocre. It's already difficult for me to rule the northern border and resist the hunting tribes. How can I have the bearing of an emperor? As for my ambition, that's even more of a misunderstanding. I was born in the army and am a boorish person. My mentality is a little irritable and impatient, and my way of doing things is also a little rough. Perhaps I have left a bad impression on the Imperial Tutor. However, my loyalty and patriotism is known by the heavens and the earth. You have to explain it to Lord Imperial Tutor." Sure. Dahei's eyes were clear and there was a trace of laziness, but there was also a cute quick-wittedness in this laziness. He laughed and said, My Imperial Tutor has a cautious personality, but his heart is not bad. If you are a loyal subject, he will naturally be close to you." "Then I'm relieved. Brother Dahei is the Imperial Tutor's first disciple and a close envoy. Your words will definitely be useful." Bai Xianlin seemed to be relieved and pulled Guochuandong and Dahei to a spacious hall. Both sides sat down and Bai Xianlin laughed heartily. Come. Heavenly pill. Spiritual tea. Immediately, a maid brought out a white jade dendrobium containing the 3 heavenly pills and served tea. The tea was green and clear like clouds. The heavenly pill was even more dazzling. The laws intertwined into the shape of a black tortoise, a fire phoenix, an azure dragon, a white tiger, etc. Obviously, the medicinal power was extremely strong. Dahei stared at the dendrobium heavenly pill in a daze for a moment, but did not move. "Please." Bai Xianlin stretched out his hand and smiled. The other important members of the Bai family all smiled but did not say anything. There was a hint of mockery in the depths of their eyes. Heavenly pills had powerful medicinal effects and contained natural laws. It was no longer an exaggeration to call them the medicine of tigers and wolves. On the contrary, it was a discount. Even nascent soul cultivators could not casually consume it. Generally speaking, one could only swallow a few pills at a time, and it would take months or even years to absorb and refine them. Only after that could one consume the heaven pill for the second time. If one were to swallow dozens of them at once, even a cultivator at the peak of the nascent soul stage or half a step into the divine transformation stage wouldn't be able to withstand it. Broken meridians, ruptured spirit embryos, and even the explosion of the nascent soul. It was entirely possible for him to go berserk. Basically, there was no hope of survival. I see. Bai Zhanyun finally understood. Father saying that he would treat him to a 3 battles heavenly pill was merely putting on a false show of strength. After all, who could consume 3 heavenly pills in one go? If he couldn't eat it, there was no reason to take it away. This was too unsightly. Then, brother, I won't hold back. Everyone thought that Big Black would retreat in the face of difficulties, eat 2 or 3 pills, and push the rest back. Who knew that Big Black would actually pick up the dendrobium with both hands and pour the heavenly pills into a ditch, swallowing them in big mouthfuls like a whale swallowing a cow? Brother Black, how can you do this? You'll explode and die. Quick stuff. Bai Xianlin's expression changed drastically as if he was shocked. He reached out to grab Big Black, wanting to stop it. Why are you so stingy? How can you go back on your words? You already said that you would treat me, and the dishes are already on the table. How can you take them back? Big Black dodged while opening its mouth and swallowing and chewing crazily. I'm not stingy. You can't take it if you eat so much at once. Quick, shut up and leave them with me. I'll keep them for you so that you can eat them at any time. Bai Xianlin used his identity and flew after it. Isn't it just 3 battles heavenly pills? I'm afraid that it won't be enough. Big Black flashed out and went straight into the clouds. Brother Big Black, don't. For a moment, Bai Xianlin and Big Black used their movement techniques and chased each other. It was very lively. In the end, Bai Xianlin even used the ice element domain to forcibly control Big Black, but the latter still broke through the domain and escaped easily. After a few flicks of the fingers, Big Black swaggered back into the hall and lay lazily on the wooden chair. It patted its round belly and let out a satisfied sigh. I'm only half full. Duke, I treated you as a brother, but is this how you treat your guests? This is too heaven-defying. He swallowed the 3 battles heavenly pills without any injuries and his mind is clear. How heaven-defying! This time, all the powerhouses of the Bai family were shocked and even trembled. They looked as if they had seen a demon. He has a special bloodline, and the grade of his nascent soul is extremely high. I'm afraid that his nascent soul is at the divine level or even higher. Even the old guys who could be called living fossils were extremely shocked and carefully looked at Big Black. The heaven pellet contained laws and was extremely powerful. Swallowing a heaven pellet into one's stomach was like swallowing a small nuclear bomb. It would immediately explode. Meanwhile, Big Black had swallowed several hundred kilometers in the blink of an eye. In their eyes, they wouldn't be able to withstand it for more than a few seconds before exploding and dying. When he saw Big Black swallowing the pills crazily, Bai Xianlin stopped it in order to save the pills. However, the old guys did not do anything. Instead, they let it happen, or rather, they were happy to see it happen. After all, Jiang Tian had once destroyed the Dan Tian of the young duke. It was impossible for the Bai family not to hate Jiang Tian. However, due to Jiang Tian's strength and status, they were unable to bare their fangs and challenge Jiang Tian. They could not defeat Jiang Tian, but if the people around Jiang Tian died, they would be relieved. Moreover, Jiang Tian could not find fault with them. After all, it's your men who are greedy for heavenly pills. The Duke of Beijiang tried to stop them, but he could not. We don't want this to happen, and we deeply regret it. They even thought of an excuse in their hearts. However, they did not expect it to end like this. Bai Xianlin entered the hall, panting. His face was sometimes pale and sometimes red. It was obvious that he had consumed a lot of power just now. At this moment, he looked at Big Black in shock and could feel cold sweat dripping down his back. It was chilly. He never expected Big Black to be so powerful. He could not catch up with Big Black even after using his ultimate movement technique. Ha! I didn't expect Brother Big Black to eat so much. Next time, I'll prepare a few more heavenly pills for you. Bai Xianlin sighed. At least 5 heavenly pills. The bigger the appetite, the greater the ability. Everything is negotiable. Bai Xianlin felt the pain and the corners of his eyes twitched. He then wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and smiled. I wonder why Brother Big Black is here this time? Chapter 1974. There is indeed a small matter on the Imperial Tutor's side. Blackie took out the Imperial Tutor's token. Disciple greets the Imperial Tutor. Receive the token. Bai Xianlin and the rest knelt down respectfully. Their attitudes were strict and meticulous. Kneel. Bai Zhanyun knelt too late. The corner of Bai Xianlin's eyes twitched and he slapped Bai Zhanyun. One of Bai Zhanyun's teeth flew out and he knelt down hurriedly. Once the Imperial Tutor's token was out, it was as if Jiang Tian had personally arrived. His authority was unparalleled, and he was above everyone else. The royal family and dukes bowed down to him and could not show any disrespect. In fact, Duke Bai doesn't need to be so formal. Blackie helped him up. Etiquette cannot be ignored. Bai Xianlin pushed a few times before getting up reluctantly. Blackie smiled. The Imperial Tutor has spoken. He is overjoyed at the completion of his new residence and has specially prepared some wine. He wants to invite his colleagues and friends to celebrate the move tonight. The Imperial Tutor's family is waiting for the Duke and young Marquis at the overlooking river residence. Alright, that's how it should be. I will definitely prepare a generous gift and prepare to pay a visit. Bai Xianlin agreed without hesitation. Then, brother, I will take my leave. I still have to pass down the order to my family. Dahe did not hesitate and immediately took his leave. Little brother, don't go too far. Bai Xianlin hurriedly tugged at Blackie's sleeve and said, Little brother, I know you have a big appetite and am worried that you won't be full. I will ask the servants to prepare 3 dipper heavenly pills for you. Treat it as a snack. If you are hungry, just eat it. Good brother, I know you are a righteous person and empathize with your brothers. Blackie wiped the non-existent tears at the corner of his eyes and smiled. To be honest, our Imperial Tutor is from a poor family. The poverty in his early years has left a shadow. He is thrifty and stingy. My rations are often deducted. Life is really hard. At the side, the maidservant had already brought out a dendrobium heavenly pill and stored it in a small green gourd. Your words are biased. As the saying goes, thriftiness cultivates one's body and diligence cultivates one's virtue. It is so for mortals and so for cultivators. Lord Imperial Preceptor is practicing the precepts. Bai Xianlin stuffed him into Dahe's arms and smiled affectionately. However, you're a young man and you're still growing. You still need to eat well. Don't worry, Big Brother will take care of your rations. As long as I have food to eat, how can I let you starve? Just based on these heaven pills, I'll take over the title of Little Brother from now on. Dahe looked very touched. Bai Xianlin smiled and said, Little brother, you and I hit it off at first sight. I have long seen that you are an extraordinary person. Let's become brothers of the opposite sex. In the future, we'll call each other brothers. What do you think? These words were very sincere. You're a duke, and I'm just a servant. How can I bear the responsibility? Dahe shouted excitedly. Swearing an oath in the cultivation world was not like swearing an oath in the mortal world, where one could simply kowtow to a god they worshipped. Instead, it was a spiritual contract that had to be obeyed. Dahe did not want to be controlled by others. Bai Xianlin smiled and said, Brother Dahe, you're obviously insulting me. Let me ask you, what's your original surname? Okay, big brother, what do you mean? Dahe was stunned and thought, how would I know my surname? When I fell to the earth, my divine soul was damaged and I couldn't even remember my own name. All day long, I played with Shirley and Qing Linzi in the Blood Orchid Waterfall of the Longevity tribe. I was worshipped by those little black ghosts and lived a carefree life day by day. Until I was rescued by my master, he didn't give me a name. But later, when I turned into a big black dog, they got used to calling me Dahe. Your surname is not Jiang. This surname was given to you by Lord Imperial Preceptor, right? Yes, that's right. Dahe nodded. Giving you a surname is not a small matter. It means that Lord Imperial Preceptor highly recognizes you and regards you as his junior. Since you're the junior of Lord Imperial Preceptor, how prestigious are you in the Empire? Even the nobles have to be polite to you. Bai Xianlin said seriously. Is that so? I'm still young, so I don't know the deeper meaning. Dahe's face was shocked, and then he said seriously, Okay, big brother, you think so highly of me. I'm very touched and agree 100%. However, our Lord Imperial Preceptor is narrow-minded. He's afraid that I'll cause trouble outside, so he doesn't allow me to become sworn brothers. At this time, I have to report it to my master first. Bai Xianlin rolled his eyes and asked, But is Lord Imperial Preceptor's banquet tonight really just for the housewarming? At that time, the chief examiner of the Hidden Dragon Trials, Princess Mou, will also come and talk about the reform of the Hidden Dragon Trials. Dahe returned the favor and offered the information. Do Lord Imperial Preceptor and the chief examiner have any new ideas? Bai Xianlin asked. Previously, replacing the virtual exam with actual combat was the Purple Marquis's proposal to stir up the conflict between the dukes. Now that the Purple Marquis was eliminated, the royal family would definitely change. If he knew the ideas of Jiang Tian and Princess Mou in advance, he would be able to make suggestions that were beneficial to himself or make preparations in advance. Brother Dahe, this matter can't be spread. Once Lord Imperial Preceptor finds out, he will definitely blame you heavily. Just as Dahe was about to speak, Guochuandong anxiously dissuaded him from the side. He was also an actor. Old Gua, this is my good big brother. Since my good big brother asked, how can I not say? Dahe anxiously shouted with a pale face. Besides, you're just a housekeeper in charge of internal affairs. To put it bluntly, this time you're just my driver. I'm a special envoy, the representative of the Lord Imperial Preceptor outside. Why do you care about me? How can you say anything? Don't think that just because you and the Lord Imperial Preceptor are from the same hometown, you're amazing. I respect you, that's why I call you brother. If I don't respect you, you're just a servant. Guochuandong's face was filled with embarrassment and anger. Bai Xianlin hurriedly became a peacemaker and advised, Brother Dahe, how can you say that? Old Gua, don't lower yourself to my brother's level. He's just a straightforward person, he doesn't mean what he says. I apologize to you on his behalf. I'll wait for you outside the residence, hurry up. If the news leaks and reaches the ears of the master, you must remember that this matter has nothing to do with me. Guochuandong flung his sleeves and walked out of the door. Damn it, he's still giving me the cold shoulder. He's just a nascent soul cultivator with mediocre aptitude and only knows how to flatter. If it weren't for the Lord Imperial Preceptor's status as a fellow countryman, how could he be qualified to be a housekeeper? I'm the special envoy of the housekeeper, and I'm in charge of both internal and external affairs. Dahe snorted with disdain. He and Guochuandong played the old trick of, noble families are as deep as the sea, and the servants are jealous of each other for power. Brother Dahe, you're young and strong, and your future is bright and limitless. As for him, he's already buried up to his neck, and he'll be like this for the rest of his life. Why do you have to care about him and cause trouble for the Lord Imperial Preceptor? Bai Xianlin advised with a smile. He's just an iron simpleton. Dahe scolded again, and then whispered mysteriously, Good big brother, this matter can't be spread out. Mou and the Lord Imperial Preceptor have agreed that the Hidden Dragon Trials will no longer be decided by actual combat between the heirs. Instead, it'll be a mission scoring system. Chapter 1975. This must be the brilliant plan of the Imperial Tutor. Bai Xianlin's face revealed a look of admiration as he sighed. The Imperial Tutor is truly a hero of a generation. Cultivating himself, managing the family, ruling the country, and pacifying the world, he is truly a talent. These words were not fake, but came from the bottom of his heart. The purpose of the hidden dragon trials was to motivate the heirs to cultivate and increase their enthusiasm to prevent the fall and weakness of the dukes. Previously, they used the heirs to bombard the magical equipment and measure the cultivation base, but it was inevitably inaccurate. One must know that cultivation base did not represent battle strength. The reform of the actual combat competition proposed by the Purple Marquis did indeed avoid the drawbacks of inaccurate testing, and could truly reflect the strength of the heirs. However, it would cause the merger of the dukes, especially the fall of the heirs, and serious internal friction. In fact, this was indeed a policy foundation laid by the Purple Marquis to provoke the conflict between the dukes and the imperial family. However, the reform of Jiang Tian and Princess Mou this time avoided the drawbacks of the Purple Marquis reform and was greatly beneficial to the empire. One must know that in the empire, there were also bandits who ruled over the mountains, and there were also monsters who wreaked havoc. However, in the past, the dukes were all selfish and only wanted to take care of their own land, and did not care about the disasters and chaos of the other dukes' territories. For example, if there was a nest of bandits in the territory of the Jianyuan Marquis, the military might not be able to deal with it, and it would require the joint efforts of 8 to 10 dukes to destroy it. However, the other dukes did not cooperate, and this led to the bandits becoming bigger and bigger. It was even said that there were some bandits that were raised by the dukes to rob other dukes, and were known as black officers and gold-moving strongmen. However, the reform of the mission point system this time was powerful. If the heirs of the dukes did not do their best to help the imperial family kill the monsters, destroy the bandits, and complete the mission, then wait for their titles to be stripped and their territories to be taken back. It's all for the imperial family. Dahe laughed, cupped its fists, and left. Wang Lin naturally sent him off. After returning to the mansion, the living fossils and consecrated experts of the Northern Frontier Duke's mansion all gathered together, discussing spiritedly as they waited for orders. There are no weaklings under the tutelage of a saint. This Saint Xiqing is very strong. I didn't expect her servants and disciples to be so strong as well. He ate so many heaven pills in one go, but he was not injured at all. Even his expression did not change at all. This is simply too heaven-defying. Everyone was shocked. He is indeed very strong. When I saw that he wanted to eat the 3 battles heavenly pellet in one go, my heart also ached. But even when I used my maximum speed, I actually couldn't catch up to him. He is a nascent soul realm cultivator, but he is also a soul formation realm cultivator. At the very least, he is not weaker than me in terms of the space escape technique. The corners of Wang Lin's eyes twitched. He seemed to be distressed and shocked. This child is too terrifying. He's terrible. The Imperial Preceptor and Saint are even more terrifying. For a moment, the sound of people sucking in cold air rose and fell. Bai Zhanyun's expression was even more dejected, as if he had lost his soul. Previously, he had wanted to catch up with Jiang Tian's footsteps, and even wanted to surpass Jiang Tian to take revenge. But now, he sadly found that he was not even as good as Jiang Tian's servant, and even his father, whom he regarded as his idol. However, I find it strange. This boy called Jiang Dahe has never appeared around the imperial tutor before. Could it be that he is an outstanding disciple of a Holy Land's divine sect? He built a good foundation and became a disciple of Saint Xiqing. It makes sense that he has such cultivation skills. At this time, a living fossil gently stroked his long breath and frowned as he pondered. I wonder if he is an outstanding disciple of a Holy Land's divine sect? Yes. What's his background? Everyone was confused for a moment and guessed. However, Wang Lin's expression became strange. The corners of his mouth twitched, and he said, "How is he an elite disciple of a Holy Land's divine sect? He is the imperial tutor's big black dog." What? It's actually that black dog demon. His strength is actually so strong. Everyone's eyeballs almost popped out, and 10,000 Chinese alligators galloped through their hearts. The Duke's strength is actually inferior to a dog's? The Duke is actually brothers with a dog? One after another, thoughts appeared in their minds uncontrollably. The corners of Bai Zhanyun's mouth twitched, and his Taoist heart was in turmoil. He wished he could kill himself on the spot. He had returned to the peak and even broken through to the nascent soul stage, but his strength was actually inferior to a dog raised by Jiang Xiqing. Was there any justice in this world? It's really boring to be a human. It's better to be a dog. Jiang Dahe and Guochuandong had their arms around each other's shoulders as they strolled along the streets of the Kanglin River. They ate the snacks they bought from the street vendors and enjoyed the local customs around them. I feel the same way as you. The more I interact with people, the more I like to interact with dogs. Because they were both foodies and had similar body shapes, Guochuandong and Jiang Dahe hit it off very well. Crawl. Jiang Dahe's face instantly darkened. He kicked Guochuandong's butt and said proudly, "Do you really think of me as a dog? That's just because I like to keep a low profile. Master told me personally that I want my bloodline to be noble." I know. Guochuandong felt that he had said something wrong and smiled embarrassedly. The two of them were extremely fast. They went down the Kanglin River and notified them one by one. The East Gorge Duke Mansion, West Ridge Duke Mansion, and dozens of other mansions also quickly spread the news. Everywhere they went, the two of them were treated with great respect by the host. They drank and chatted merrily with the Duke, called the Marquis brothers, and the lords and ministers avoided them. They also accepted all kinds of bribes and returned with a full load. They ate until their mouths were full of oil. However, they soon arrived at Jin Yuanho's mansion in the capital city. "Oh, Brother Gua, I heard magpies chirping when I woke up early in the morning. I thought that something good was going to happen. I didn't expect you to come. This handsome young man is actually Brother Dahe." When the two streaks descended, the guests, retainers, and guards instantly rushed over one after another, and they greeted them respectfully and warmly. "Brother Dahe, you've lost weight. You should eat more. I have 2 spirit pills here. I bought them from the branch of the ancient medicine hall. Here you go." There were also people who were familiar with him who catered to him and fed him directly. The spirit pills were not cheap, but this was not a loss-making business. Although they were all servants, they were also divided into different ranks. Now that they had become the steward and special envoy of the Grand Tutor's mansion, even the nobles had to be courteous to them. Their status was too high. If they could get closer to Dahe and Guochuandong, they might even have a chance to be protected by Jiang Tian in the future. Hello, brothers. Guochuandong was very happy. He indeed felt like he had returned home in glory and was proud and elated. "Today, I'm here to see the Marquis on behalf of the Grand Tutor. Please inform him." Guochuandong stated the purpose of his visit. However, before they could inform him, a voice sounded. It was filled with disdain and a hint of coldness that instantly rang in everyone's ears. "Instead of guarding your positions properly, you're all gathered together to make a racket. How improper." Everyone turned their heads and saw Lin Dyer flying over with a disgruntled look on her face. Chapter 1976. "Miss, it's the butler of the Imperial Tutor's residence and the Imperial Tutor's special envoy." "Yes," a guest hurriedly reported, but a strange look flashed across his face. Cultivators were different from mortals. Their eyes were like torches, and their divine senses were extremely sharp. With Lin Dyer's cultivation, her vast divine senses could cover a radius of 10 miles in an instant. Not a blade of grass, a tree, a branch, or a leaf could escape her detection. She naturally knew that it was Guochuandong and Dahe who came to send a message, but she deliberately spoke in such a way. Obviously, she was extremely disdainful of the two. "We haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's have a chat." Many of the guest elders, and guards had awkward expressions on their faces. They were confused, or rather, they felt that it was unreasonable. When the Lin family was attacked by the demon clan, Guochuandong and Dahe had both made great contributions to the safe evacuation of the Lin family disciples. Jiang Tian had saved Lin Dyer's life. Even the entire Lin family relied on Jiang Tian's support to survive the crisis. Otherwise, it would have been destroyed long ago. For Jiang Tian's sake, Lin Dyer should not be so rude. Dahe's face turned cold. He took out the Imperial Tutor's token and said seriously, "The Imperial Tutor has given an oral order to the Imperial Tutor. Why don't you open the door and welcome him?" "Ha, with a broken token? Why are you pretending to be a big wolf? What Imperial Tutor or saint? You're just a guest of the Lin family." Lin Dyer's pretty face turned serious, and she directly scolded. "These two are just rogue cultivators and a dog from outside the Milky Way. What do you have to talk about? Hurry up and leave." She looked around again and said coldly. Guochuandong was originally going to greet them with a smile, but in an instant, he was embarrassed and frowned. What an unpleasant word. Even with his generous personality, he could not help but secretly curse brainless woman in his heart. Not to mention, Jiang Tian's identity was different from before. Lin Dyer's words were disrespectful and could even be sentenced to death. Even if everyone did not argue with her, her words were extremely inappropriate. Her words were condescending, revealing her disdain for guests and rogue cultivators from outside the Milky Way. Those present were guests and guards, and many of them were from outside the Milky Way. Wouldn't these words make people's hearts turn cold? One had to know that the public opinion was very important. That's right, he's just a servant. He doesn't dare to disobey your eldest Mississippi. But they usually don't show it and take your salary peacefully. It's only at critical moments like the last time when you were faced with a disaster, but they didn't put in any effort. It could even be said that they switched sides at the last moment and attacked you. What can you do? She's in a high position and grew up in a noble family. She's been influenced a lot, but she doesn't know how to use people's hearts. She doesn't know how to win people over. Marquis Lin has been wise all his life. How could he have given birth to such a foolish daughter? Guochuandong sighed in his heart. "Yes, young miss." Sure enough, the guests, retainers, and guards all revealed expressions of displeasure, but they didn't refute and scattered like birds and beasts. "Let's go," Lin Dai said casually, as if nothing had happened. "Wait," Dahe shouted with a solemn face. "What happened?" Lin Dyer gave Dahe a contemptuous look. She didn't expect this dog demon to look quite handsome after it turned into a human. "Lin Dai, do you know that when I went to the Duke of Beijiang's mansion just now, Bai Zhanyun was almost beaten to death by the Duke of Beijiang because he was a little slow in kneeling? When the state preceptor's token is out, it's as if the state preceptor is there in person. The state preceptor is second only to one person and above everyone else. The royal family kneels before him and welcomes him respectfully. You saw the state preceptor's token and dared not to kneel. That's a serious crime. You even dared to speak irresponsibly and speak rudely. Lin Dai, I'll give the state preceptor face and not kill you. But remember, there won't be a next time." Dahe's eyes twitched as he shouted coldly. He was extremely angry. However, although Blackie had all kinds of problems, there was one thing that made him absolutely loyal to Jiang Tian. He even knew to consider from Jiang Tian's point of view. He knew that Jiang Tian had deep feelings for the Lin family and would never kill Lin Dai. Therefore, even if he wanted to tear Lin Dai into pieces and make her into spicy strips, he could only endure. "Oh, I have to kneel. I'll definitely kneel next time." Lin Dai was not afraid at all. Her mouth curved into a disdainful smile. "It's just that you said I spoke irresponsibly and spoke rudely. I don't understand. Didn't the state preceptor become a guest of our Lin family? I'm telling the truth. Moreover, as the saying goes, heroes are not afraid of low birth. I'm afraid the state preceptor doesn't mind this, right? How can you say rudely?" Although she did not know why Jiang Tian was so protective of the Lin family, she was sure of this. Jiang Tian had deep feelings for the Lin family and would never allow Dahe to kill her. Dahe also understood this and did not dare to kill her. "Ha, a sharp-tongued little girl. The state preceptor's ritual is complicated. Don't let me find out that you're negligent. When that time comes, I'll spank you." Dahe shook his sleeves and revealed his white teeth. He grinned. "Moreover, do you really think Sage Siqing won't dare to kill you? That's not necessarily true. On 100 Flowers Peak, Sage Siqing repeatedly slapped you. She's only one step away from killing you." I know, I know. Thinking of this, Lin Dyer was so frightened that her delicate body trembled. She did not dare to say anything more and obediently led the way. So, in an elegant house, Dahe and Guchuandong also met Lin Hanqing and his son. Brother Dahe, Brother Gua. I didn't expect the two of you to come so suddenly. Please forgive me for not coming out to meet you. Lin Hanqing was full of enthusiasm and was very respectful and polite. Things were different now. In the past, Guchuandong and Dahe were servants of the Lin family. But now, they were the steward and special envoy of the state preceptor's residence. Even the crown prince and other members of the royal family, as well as the four dukes, had to treat them with respect, let alone a marquis. In the evening, the state preceptor's residence will host a banquet and invite the dukes and successors to congratulate the state preceptor on his move. Dahe said concisely and smiled indifferently. Just for the sake of moving in? What exactly is it for? Lin Hanqing asked directly. After spending almost a year with Jiang Tian, he knew Jiang Tian's personality. Jiang Tian disliked red formalities. This time, it was very unusual. However, Dahe immediately said, Marquis, if I remember correctly, Duke Nanha's residence is nearby. Send a message as soon as possible and invite him and Miss Goyu here. I will tell you together. I'll go now. Lin Yang floated away. Why do you want to tell me together? Lin Hanqing asked. Marquis, the matter is important and confidential. Try to avoid leaking the news. I won't say it a second time, just say it together. Dahe sat lazily on the chair, eating the elixirs sent by the servants as if they were jelly beans, and said slowly. Lin Hanqing's face suddenly became solemn. Dahe had always been mischievous and lively. Today, it was so serious that it was definitely not a small matter. Pretending to be mysterious. Lin Dyer curled her lips. She didn't think anything big would happen. Marquis Purple Robe's rebellion had just been quelled, and the general situation was just settled. Jiang Tian had also just assumed the position of state preceptor. At this time, what he needed was stability. Logically speaking, how could Jiang Tian dare to act rashly? A moment later, Fang Jinlong and Fang Goyu also rushed over. Brother Dahe, you can speak freely. After a series of greetings, Lin Hanqing immediately activated a restriction to prevent the detection of divine sense. The state preceptor wants me to greet the two marquises and several successors. Dahe glanced at the crowd and smiled. At the banquet, the state preceptor intends to abolish the feudal system and set up a county system. He will deprive the dukes of their titles and fiefs and change them into civil officials and military generals. Otherwise, they will be killed without mercy. As soon as these words came out, there was a dead silence. Everyone's eyes almost popped out. Chapter 1977. The heirs of the dukes will be stripped of their titles and will participate in the hidden dragon trials with the commoners. They will be given official positions based on their performance and results. Big Black said calmly. No one had thought that Jiang Tian would have such courage, or rather be so reckless and forceful. Not long after he became the imperial teacher, he immediately carried out such a bold and decisive reform. It could be said that this was a huge reform, like the creation of the heavens and the earth. It involved the interests of all sides. All the major forces were unable to calm down. If Xiqing wants to carry out this reform, then it is equal to becoming the enemy of all the dukes. It is very dangerous. Why are you so anxious? Lin Yang was suddenly very anxious, sweating for Jiang Tian's safety. Cutting off one's path to wealth is like killing one's parents. Titles and fiefs are the foundation of the dukes' lives. If they were stripped by Jiang Tian, how could they not rebel? If many dukes acted together against Jiang Tian may not be able to withstand it. Even if they did not act immediately, but one could imagine that the smoke of war would rise everywhere, and rebellions would occur frequently. One must know that the dukes have millions of soldiers. Even the imperial power may not be able to suppress them. The Purple Marquis is connected to the 10,000 Demon Palace. What about the other dukes? They also have their own sects as their backing, and even the shadow of the divine sect. If these sects participate in the struggle of the empire, then it will be a complete mess. Big Black did not change his expression, smiling. Young Wang Lin, don't worry. You have never truly seen my master's strength. Moreover, my master's actions seem to be like moving clouds and flowing water, unpredictable and without order. But in reality, he has always been meticulous, watertight, and has never failed. When these words came out, everyone was also speechless. Carefully recalling Jiang Tian's many deeds, he was indeed worthy of the evaluation of meticulous, watertight, and has never failed. The imperial teacher is so bold. Does he want to rewrite history? Fang Jinlong's face suddenly froze, very sincerely saying, as a duke, my heart is also very conflicted. On one hand, I deeply know that the feudal system is not beneficial to the development of the empire. The county system is the future of the empire. The dukes have taken the opportunity of the commoners. But on the other hand, I naturally don't want my fief and title to be taken away. It's naturally very comfortable. He looked at Lin Yang worriedly and said, Lin Yang, in particular, what I am most worried about is that Lin Yang's qualifications are mediocre. Once he is deprived of his title and fief, will he be able to make a name for himself? Her daughter and Lin Yang have a good relationship, so she can't stop them. He also regarded Lin Yang as his future son-in-law. Moreover, Crown Prince Dong Fangding also rewarded Fang Goyu. His feelings for Fang Goyu were very clear. Will he use this reform to suppress Lin Yang, this love rival? Father-in-law, you're underestimating your son-in-law. Right now, I'm only one step away from nascent soul. Among the heirs of the feudal lords, I can be considered a genius. It won't be a problem for me to become a general. Lin Yang was full of confidence. Lin Yang, you haven't realized where the real revolution of this hidden dragon trials is. That was, the heirs of the dukes would compete with the commoners. Among the commoners, there were 10 times or even 100 times more geniuses than the heirs of the dukes. There are thousands upon thousands of nascent soul cultivators in the empire. Lin Hanqing sighed and said with a frown. Indeed. Hearing this, everyone's hearts trembled. Now, the heirs of the feudal lords would face 10 times or even 100 times more competition than before. The probability of them being able to protect their existing interests was only 1% of the original. Lin Hanqing smiled bitterly. If this reform is delayed for another 10 or 20 years, when Lin Yang enters mid-nascent soul, then it will be much safer. He was just sighing with emotion, but he also understood that this was completely unrealistic. Now, Jiang Tian was second only to the emperor and above tens of thousands of people. How could he have the right to control Jiang Tian? At this moment, Lin Dai frowned and said, Big Black, can you report to the imperial tutor and have him delay this reform by 10 years and continue the old system of enfeefment? I'm not doing this for the personal benefit of the Lin family, but for the sake of the imperial tutor. If the feudal lords rebel, he will be a sinner for all eternity. It can even be said that he will die. Be careful with your words. Lin Hanqing and Fang Jinlong both shouted harshly. Lin Hanqing was so scared that he was sweating profusely. He apologized to Big Black. Big Black, it's all my fault for not disciplining her. That's why she has developed such a frivolous personality. Don't be angry. After this, I will punish her well. Under the pressure of her father, Lin Dai did not say anything, but she was not convinced at all. This Jiang Xiqing, if the Lin family had not taken her in, she would have been just a rogue cultivator outside the river. She would have been homeless. She would have even been devoured by demons and monsters. How could she have the position of the imperial tutor now? In fact, with Jiang Tian's strength, even if he went to those holy lands or holy sects, he could be a giant or an elder. Jiang Tian did not come to the Lin family for many benefits. He came to the Lin family to make up for the kindness of his previous life. However, Lin Dai was a willful and narrow-minded person, so she did not think of this at all. Now that he has become the imperial tutor, he has turned his back on us. When making such a national policy, did he not consider the interests of the Lin family? What an ungrateful, heartless, and ungrateful person. Thinking of this, Lin Dai was even more depressed and angry. Her disgust and dislike for Jiang Tian reached an unprecedented level. It doesn't matter. Dahe was not angry and said indifferently, in fact, I know your concerns and concerns. But I think, with the wisdom of the master, he has already thought about it. Moreover, the master has always been loyal and righteous. How can he ignore your interests? However, the master still carries out the new policy that seems to violate your interests. Do you know why? He sipped his tea and glanced at the crowd. Everyone shook their heads. Lin Hanqing said with a smile, Brother Dahe, please enlighten us. I don't want to enlighten you. It's just that I have been following the master for a long time and have been influenced by many of his ideas. I know something about it, Dahe said calmly. The master has always believed that he is the only one who can control everything in the world. Everything else is fleeting. In this world, strength is the most important. In addition to strength, cultivation methods and unique skills, and companions that can help each other, everything else is fleeting. Because the strength is too weak, it can be lost at any time. If the strength is strong, it can be obtained at any time. Authority, wealth, and the reverence of all. Groups of servants and numerous disciples. You possess a paradise, reside in a holy land of cultivation, and even control a vast expanse of land and territory. You can enjoy it, but don't be addicted to it, and don't be restrained by it. These things, if you have magic skills and strength, even if you lose them, you can still get them back one day, right? Worldly possessions, don't despise them when you see them, don't be discouraged when you lose them. You can get what you want and lose it when you want. Only then can you be free, and detached. After that, he looked at the crowd with a smile. Chapter 1978. I am the only one who can control everything in the world. Everything else is just floating clouds. Wonderful. Especially the word, floating clouds, it's extremely vivid. Fong Jinlong murmured and thought. Suddenly, he slapped his thigh and said excitedly, It's really better to listen to your words than to study for 10 years. Brother Dahe's words are simply the truth of the world. Without strength, what's the use of guarding the title and wealth? It's just a fat sheep at the mercy of others. It's futile to invite a fatal disaster. If you have strength, like those masters of the saints, who have mastered the law and contacted the great way, you can suppress the country with the power of heaven and earth. Even if the emperor sees you, he has to kowtow 3 times and 9 times. How free and unfettered you are. It's just a piece of cake for you to get the throne. The territory of a country is also a piece of cake for you. I didn't expect Brother Dahe to have such a great insight. He was full of praises. He really felt like he was enlightened and had a sudden epiphany. It's not worth mentioning. You flatter me. You flatter me. I learned it from my master. Dahe was both smug and embarrassed. At worst, I'll start all over again. Lin Hanqing also figured it out in an instant. With strength, one could have everything. Indeed, the feudal system was not conducive to the growth and development of the Eastern Empire. It had been 3,000 years since the ancestor of the Lin family followed Dongfang Run, established the country, and was conferred the title of duke. He couldn't lie on the merit book for the rest of his life. If the descendants of the dukes didn't live up to expectations and just enjoyed the fruits of others' labor, not only would they block the way for the common people to rise, but the empire would also become weaker and weaker. Moreover, the descendants of the dukes would also become useless. It was okay for a good-for-nothing like Lin Yang to be harmless to humans and animals. There were even some descendants of the dukes who were arrogant and lascivious. They took pleasure in bullying men and women, which made the people miserable and full of complaints. In this world, there were not only contradictions between the imperial family, the dukes, and the common people within the empire. There were also contradictions between the empire and the sects, as well as between the empire and the empire. As the saying goes, without the skin, where can the hair attach to? If the empire was weak for too long, it would be like a fat sheep walking in the jungle where wild beasts roamed. Sooner or later, other countries would see its weakness and incompetence and show their sharp claws and teeth. However, his train of thought was also more grounded. Obviously, it was not as magnificent as Fang Jinlong's. As long as Lin Yang inherits 1 or 2 unique skills from the sage, even if he is only a county magistrate at the beginning, as his strength improves, he will be able to reach a high position. Alright, just remember the imperial tutor's instructions. Dahe nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, however, I still have a little trick on my side. During the banquet, you will do your best to cooperate and put on a good show with the emperor and the state preceptor. As long as the emperor or the crown prince shows any intention of removing your fiefs and titles, you must immediately hand over your fiefs and titles. At that time, our state preceptor will have all the reasons to use you as an example of loyalty and patriotism. It would be much more reasonable to kill those disobedient dukes. We will also give you benefits. A sinister and cunning expression appeared on his tanned and young face. Since the torrent of history is unstoppable, why don't we add fuel to the fire? Fang Jinlong and Lin Hanqing were both decisive people. They looked at each other and immediately agreed. However, Lin Dai's face was very ugly. She snorted coldly in her heart. This Jiang Siqing is really vicious and hypocritical. She wants us to hand over the inheritance of our ancestors, the fiefs that we fought for with our swords and spears, and the titles that we exchanged with blood and bones. And she wants us to look very happy? She is too unscrupulous. She is really a slave of 3 surnames. She has forgotten her roots. Lin Dai was very annoyed. The state preceptor also knows that Lin Yang and Miss Goyu have a deep relationship. However, the crown prince, Dongfang Ding, is also quite fond of Miss Goyu. I am afraid that one day he will obstruct and even eliminate the Lin family. Dahe's face suddenly became cold as he said in a deep voice. At the mention of this, the faces of Lin Hanqing and the others all changed wildly. In fact, this was a big stone in their hearts. A difficult problem to solve. They had also discussed it before, but there was no solution. They did not doubt Dongfang Ding's courage and decisiveness. Now that the vassals were in power and each had their own ulterior motives, he still needed the Lin and Fang families. Once the vassals were pacified and he stabilized the country, he would definitely force Fang Goyu to marry him. If the Lin family dared to resist, he would absolutely destroy them. As long as the Lin family shows loyalty at the housewarming banquet, the state preceptor can immediately ask the emperor to grant a marriage. Eastern Lu looks at the big picture and ignores personal relationships. When the time comes, even the crown prince can't stop him. He can only hold his nose and bear it. Dahe said in a deep voice. This is a brilliant plan. Lin Hanqing and Fang Jinlong both slapped their thighs, as if they had been enlightened. At this time, Eastern Lu desperately wanted to take back the power of the vassals. This was more important than anything else. The most ruthless royal family. In Eastern Lu's eyes, personal relationships were not even worth a mention. In his opinion, so what if Dongfang Ding didn't marry Fang Goyu? What was the difference between the daughters of other families? However, if we support the state preceptor and voluntarily hand over our power and fiefs, what if the emperor doesn't accept the state preceptor's suggestion? What if the crown prince also resists? Who will be responsible for our family's losses? Lin Dai questioned coldly. Hearing this, even the usually good-tempered Guochuandong couldn't stand it. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth, the muscles on his face bulging. Why was this woman so confusing? She was talking as much nonsense as farts. Although the state preceptor had risen from the Lin family, had he ever received any favor from the Lin family? He had been helping the Lin family all this time. The state preceptor didn't owe the Lin family anything. He had saved you out of kindness, but it was also reasonable that he didn't save you. In the end, you were still giving him face. Don't say too much. Everything is up to the heavens. There's no such thing as a perfect plan in this world. Lin Hanqing said hurriedly. We've already engraved the state preceptor's willingness to worry about the marriage of the Lin couple. How can we ask for more? Fang Jinlong also said. It was like a drowning person was about to drown. Everyone else was either watching from the sidelines or helpless to do anything. At this time, someone was willing to help. However, the drowning person was asking the rescuer to guarantee that he would be saved. Wasn't this nonsense? Dahe frowned and his eyes were cold. Lin Dai had always been like this. If she was facing a sage-level expert, she would be timid, like a believer meeting a god, not daring to disobey. However, she was sure that Jiang Tian would not kill her because of his feelings for the Lin family. Therefore, she became more and more unscrupulous. He said calmly, "The state preceptor's strength is obvious to all. He is respected by the world. His words can be the law of the world. As long as he proposes the county system, I'm afraid the world will regard it as a standard and scramble to be loyal to him. The state preceptor told me in advance that he doesn't really need your support. He just hopes that you can react quickly in this mighty torrent of history, seize the opportunity, and take advantage of the situation to gain something." The Lin family and the Fang family are the first to support him. They will gain face and benefits. If you don't support him, you will lose face, lose your benefits, and lose real benefits. Dahe's tone became a little more serious. Its eyes were arrogant, as if Lin Hanqing and the others were just a group of small potatoes that it could crush by raising its hand. Why does the state preceptor need the support of a few ants? Those who try to stop the chariot will be killed. After that, he snorted and left, leaving Lin Dai stunned on the spot. Chapter 1979. Brother Dahe, let me see you off. Dai spoke rudely. You're a magnanimous person. Don't be angry. Lin Hanqing, Fang Jinlong, and the others all went out to see him off. Lin Dai stood stiffly in place for a long time, her glazed eyes finally regaining their luster. She doesn't know anything. She's just talking nonsense. Why would I stoop to her level? Dahe's disdainful voice came from afar. I don't know anything? Hearing this, she shook her head. A mocking smile appeared at the corner of her mouth as she muttered to herself, "A mere dog dares to bare its teeth at me. It's ridiculous. Is this what it means when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven? However, you've only been on this continent for a short time. You don't know the vastness of the world and how deep the waters of the empire are. Which duke doesn't have the backing of a hidden sect? It's just that no one is willing to show their sharp claws until it's time for a life and death battle. You're wrong. It's inevitable that the royal family will weaken day by day and eventually collapse. It's hard for the empire to recover. It's not something that you, Jiang Xiqing, can change. It's not like the royal family doesn't have any saints. However, can they change the situation of the rise of the dukes and the collapse of the royal family? In history, starting from Dongfang Jie, there were countless outstanding talents, including the royal family and the ministers. They were impassioned and wanted to abolish the feudal system, but in the end, they all met with reality and died. They were the laughing stock of the world. As she spoke, her eyes were filled with determination. In the imperial preceptor's residence. This little girl is too disgusting. If it's not for master's sake, I'll cut her into pieces. Jiang Dahe landed while cursing. How's the situation? Come in and we'll talk. Suddenly, a voice appeared in his mind. It was Jiang Tian telling him where he was. Dahe's face turned serious. Following Jiang Tian's guidance, he entered the back hall of the imperial preceptor's residence. As the place where Jiang Tian cultivated in seclusion, this place had been renovated according to Jiang Tian's suggestion. It had tall doors, big windows, and a large area. However, there were very few furnishings, giving people a feeling of loneliness and emptiness. A cloud bed, a pill furnace, a bookshelf, a table, and a treasure pavilion formed the living quarters of an important person. Beside the cloud bed, an exquisite copper stove was lit with sandalwood incense. Smoke rose in spirals from the stove as it hovered nearby. On the other hand, Jiang Tian sat upright on the bed of clouds. His face was blurry as if he was shrouded in green smoke. He couldn't tell if he was old or young, beautiful or ugly, but there was a sense of ethereal Daoist charm and majesty. The space around him seemed to have evolved into a transcendent place surrounded by clear air. Disciple pays his respects to Lord State Preceptor. Even though Dahe had followed Jiang Tian for a long time and had a lively personality, it couldn't help but lower its head and salute at this moment. There was a kind of trembling that came from the bottom of his heart, producing a feeling of alienation and distance. It was as if he was looking up at a tall mountain that he could not climb. Speak! Jiang Tian's eyes were half closed, and his aura was ethereal and solemn. At this moment, he was like a towering mountain that brought a heavy and oppressive feeling to people's hearts. However, there was a strange emptiness that appeared as if he existed here, but also as if he was far away in the sky. The devil's blade of heaven and earth in his hand was constantly stretching, expanding, and shrinking unpredictably. It had been completely refined by him. Many of Jiang Tian's magic treasures had been tainted by the immortal emperor's 9 heavens divine qi. This was more obvious than any sign. As the immortal emperor who overlooked the Milky Way as if he was looking at the lines on his palm, he could sense Jiang Tian's existence extremely quickly. Unless one day he figured out the immortal emperor's real plan and got rid of the shackles and control the possibility of controlling his destiny, Jiang Tian had to avoid the immortal emperor's observation. Therefore, Jiang Tian had also refined the devil's blade of heaven and earth that he had obtained from Sir God Qi Ling into a devil sword. As he breathed in and out, all kinds of dharma tides in heaven and earth rose and surged. Even the rhythm of the great Tao was affected and resonated with it. At this moment, his connection with heaven and earth was very strong. He was deeply involved with the Dharma and great Tao, even deeper than ordinary divine transformation realm experts. He had already surpassed the blessing of heaven and earth of the divine transformation realm. It was as if a small universe had been born in his body, reflecting the heaven and earth outside, surpassing this part of heaven and earth. He was connected with the endless Dharma as vast as the sea and affected the great Tao as heavy as a mountain. He was like an arm that could move his fingers. His divine powers were unpredictable and he was omnipotent. Beside him, Sir God Nyo Ben was floating in the void, like the shadow of a candle in the wind, drifting and appearing from time to time. He is only one step away from the divine transformation realm and he can even reach it in an instant. However, he seems to be suppressing his power on purpose to prolong the path of becoming immortal. He's tempering himself to become a peak-level god and a divine transformation realm expert of the highest level. He's like an innate god that was born by heaven and earth. It's as if his mind and body have been entrusted to the void at this moment. The heaven and earth inside his body are formed and connected with the outside world. It's as if this part of heaven and earth belongs to him. He has already surpassed the divine transformation realm. This is definitely a characteristic of the void return realm. Even if he's a divine transformation realm expert, he shouldn't be showing it. That's too heaven-defying. He had a human body and an ox head. His face was full of shock and he was dumbfounded, as if he had seen a god. The relationship between the divine transformation realm and heaven and earth. In short, the divine transformation realm cultivators were like the sons of heaven and earth, who had been recognized by heaven and earth. They could mobilize the Dharma and even drive the great Tao, show powerful divine powers and even punish on behalf of heaven. However, the divine transformation realm cultivators were weaker than this part of heaven and earth after all. They lived in this part of heaven and earth and naturally couldn't surpass it. They were gods in the human world. The relationship between the void return realm cultivators and heaven and earth was, in a word, beyond this part of heaven and earth. They could play with heaven and earth in their hands. Once they entered the void return realm, they would surpass heaven and earth and become saints. That was why they were called sages. At this moment, Nyo Ben felt that although Jiang Tian's cultivation was in the nascent soul realm, his small nascent soul was like a small universe in the body of a cultivator of the void return realm. It reflected the outside world and involved the Dharma and great Tao. It seemed to have the power to destroy the world and turn heaven and earth upside down. This feeling was like watching a 3-year-old child move a mountain. It was incredible. At this moment, the back hall of the cultivation hall was densely covered with arrays, which blocked the detection of divine senses and blocked Jiang Tian's breath. This array was derived from Jiang Tian's art of deceiving heaven and earth. Even people from the 9 heavens immortal realm couldn't sense his existence. There was only darkness and emptiness. It merged with heaven and earth and didn't show up in Jianghu. It was as ordinary as grass and as vague as a stone grain. Jiang Tian also dispersed his art of deceiving heaven and earth and revealed his full strength, which shocked Niu Ben. The Duke of Beijiang gave me the 5-dipper heavenly pill and wanted to bribe me. I felt that if I refused, it would make him more vigilant. He would also be cautious about the information he gave me and wouldn't believe everything. Therefore, I had to take it. I feel that my pure soul has been tarnished. Dahe sighed and said, I didn't want to be corrupt, but in order to gain people's trust and enter the enemy's inner circle, I had to sacrifice my conscience and reluctantly do it. It had to clean itself first. It's not a bad thing to be in the same world as light. You swallowed so many heavenly pills in one go and still have your head and tail intact. It's not a disgrace to your purple gold true dragon bloodline. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. He looked more human, as if he had stepped into the world of mortals. The previous superior and detached charms seemed to have faded a little. This made Niu Ben's god feel less uneasy. However, in the next moment, when he carefully thought about Jiang Tian's words, he almost jumped up in shock. This brat is actually a purple gold true dragon. He looked at Dahe in disbelief. He felt more and more that Dahe was outstanding. The laws of wind, rain, thunder, lightning, and other laws around him were deeply connected to him. They were extremely submissive and obedient to him. However, he seemed to have also cultivated a method to conceal himself, which was extremely difficult to detect. Oh my god! The purple gold true dragon bloodline is much stronger and purer than the abyss demonic dragon bloodline. That's the strongest divine beast in the universe. I heard that there are more of them in the 9 heavens celestial world. But it actually became Jiang Xiqing's servant. Where did Jiang Xiqing come from? I'm afraid she could only be the reincarnation of a big shot in the celestial world. That's simply killing gods and Buddhas who block his way. He seems to be scheming against the empire's vassals. Sigh, these vassals are in trouble. They're really in trouble. The more Niu Ben's god thought about it, the more he felt that Jiang Tian was terrifying. Sometimes he was bright and sometimes he was dark. Sometimes he was real and sometimes he was faint. He was greatly shocked and extremely unstable. Also, the demon king Han Guang of the pantheon of demons was actually the incarnation of Dongfang Jia. He was afraid that the pantheon of demons would also be eliminated by this person. At that time, no one knew how many demons would die. Demon blood would stain the earth. It could be called an unprecedented disaster. No one knew how many demons would die an unnatural death. Thinking of this, Niu Ben's god didn't dare to think about it. Chapter 1980. Of course, other things aside, in terms of appetite, I've never lost to anyone. Dahe stood with his hands on his hips, proud of himself. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and did not comment. However, Dahe did not dare to be cocky for too long. If we reveal our true intentions, the Duke of Northern Frontier will definitely be unwilling, but I see that he is not prepared at all. I'm afraid he will only submit when the time comes. Due to the fall of the 4 Friends of the Gorge, the Duke of Eastern Gorge has lost all his strength. I'm afraid he won't have much strength left to resist. He is also full of respect for you, sincerely submitting to you. But the Duke of West Ridge is a little unsure. He seems to be quite confident, as if no matter how strong he is, the wind will clear the mountain. No matter how strong the wind is, he will remain unmoved. Dahe looked simple, but in fact, he could see all aspects very clearly. He reported the situation of the dukes in detail. Does the Duke of West Ridge have connections with a sect? Does he have something to rely on? Jiang Tian frowned slightly. Jiang Tian did not believe that the Duke of West Ridge would be so selfless as to not care about his fief and title. It was difficult for people to surpass their own class interests. History also had its own inertia. Even if Lin Hanqing and Fang Jinlong were loyal and patriotic people, and it was fine for them to work for the imperial family, they could not accept the imperial family stripping them of their hereditary titles for no reason. He should have something to rely on. He has nothing to fear. In the previous life, the Duke of West Ridge did not participate in the rebellion of Purple Marquis Shen and Gu. But in the process of the royal family quelling the rebellion, he did not do his best. The ones who really contributed were the Duke of Zhenyuan Lin family and the Gongfang family. The one who really killed the Duke of Purple Marquis was a veteran saint of the royal family. Therefore, the Duke of West Ridge's strength was not obvious, and his background was unknown. The intelligence system of the Pantheon of Demons has never received any relevant information. Seeing Jiang Tian looking at him inquiringly, the god of Sir God Niu Ben quickly shook his head. Jiang Tian nodded slightly, his eyes deep and distant. Even if the Duke of West Ridge did not have a hidden sect as a backer in the previous life, it did not mean that he did not have one in this life. Because after he came to this continent, he had been very low-key and tried his best not to change the course of history. However, the history of the empire had been rewritten. The death of the Purple Marquis was a huge psychological blow to the vassals, so they all had their own ways of dealing with it. Although the remnants of the Marquis of Purple Robe were destroyed in only 3 months, and he had not stopped to prepare for the abolition of the feudal system without any gap, it was already extremely fast. But among the feudal lords, it was inevitable that there would be courageous and resolute people who would quickly respond. For example, he could immediately establish ties with a powerful hidden sect. It's fine. I'm worried that he doesn't have a powerful backer. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too boring if I could just give an order and change the system, and the vassals wouldn't even dare to fart? It would be best if 2 divine sects like the Nine Mysteries sect came to kill me. As soon as Jiang Tian said that, "My lord, you are truly domineering. You have the demeanor of someone who can shock the ages and suppress the world." Niu Ben's god was so scared that he was shivering like a quail in the wind. His mouth was full of praise, but in his heart, he was cursing Jiang Tian for being a lunatic. It was simply unreasonable. It was simply too crazy. Divine sects like the Nine Mysteries sect were so terrifying, but he didn't even take them seriously. Chief Arrester of the sect of 6 Fans, Divine Arrester Tian Qingjun, is here to meet you. Outside the door, the butler Guochuandong's voice came through divine sense. Let him in. Jiang Tian's face was indifferent. Because of the prosperity of cultivation and martial arts, the constables of the empire had long been separated from the yamen and became the sect of 6 Fans. There was a branch in every city, and there was a guard station on every street. It was on par with the yamen, and the offices were usually in the north and south of the city. In the empire's political system, the sect of 6 Fans was a permanent organization under the cabinet. Its status was theoretically on par with the 6 departments, and the chief arrester could also participate in cabinet meetings. Disciple, by Tian Qingjun, is here to meet the master of state. A middle-aged man walked in. He was tall and strong but not clumsy. Like a cheetah, he was full of explosive power. As soon as he entered the rear hall, his expression turned solemn and he immediately kowtowed 3 times and kowtowed 9 times in a solemn manner without saying a word. Stand up and talk. Jiang Tian calmly accepted his kowtow, and only then did he raise his hand slightly. Thus, may I know why the master of state is looking for me? What can I do for you? Tian Qingjun stood up, but he still held his fists and bowed slightly, extremely respectful. He was dressed solemnly, and his hair and beard were meticulously groomed, revealing his meticulous personality. His bronze face was resolute, and his eyes were reserved and calm. There were many rules floating around him, and there was a resonance with the great Tao. He was also a master of the divine transformation realm. The rules he mastered were mostly related to investigation and pursuit, such as the heavenly eye, soul attack, wind chasing, sky breaking, eagle falcon, and so on. His overall strength was stronger than ordinary dukes like Lin Hanqing, but slightly weaker than first-class masters like Fang Jinlong and Purple Marquis. Recently, on the continent, are there any perverted thieves? I want relevant information. Jiang Tian smiled indifferently. Perverted thieves? Tian Chengjun was slightly stunned. Beside him, Niu Ben's deity also had an incredulous expression. Why would you care about perverted thieves when the empire was undergoing great changes and turbulence? However, Tian Chengjun didn't dare to ask too much and quickly said, there are many benefactors like perverted thieves on the continent. Not to mention the continent, even the empire has plenty of them. There are statistics in this disciple's jade scroll. Master of State, please take a look. As he spoke, he took out a jade scroll and was about to open it. I don't need to take a look. Jiang Tian waved his hand and said, the perverted thief I want must have the following characteristics. Firstly, the perverted thief is extremely cruel and often destroys corpses. Secondly, he is proficient in the art of dual cultivation and plucking. The woman is usually a golden core or nascent soul realm female cultivator with a virgin body. Her vital yin, qi, and blood have been plucked clean. Thirdly, he always acts alone and is proficient in the void-splitting law. Jiang Tian was obviously looking for the Thunder Yang sex Zongzi, Yang Dingtian, who wanted to forcefully marry Huang Linger. However, Yang Dingtian originally liked to pluck women, and his whereabouts were secretive. He rarely appeared in the sect. It was extremely difficult for Jiang Tian to look for him in the sect. Jiang Tian's objective was to kill this person when he went out to pluck. However, Yang Dingtian had done too many evil deeds in his life, and the bloody cases on him were too numerous to be recorded. However, he had always been deceiving others. Even when his true appearance was exposed, he was still spurned by the righteous sections. Of course, he wouldn't admit to any old crimes that weren't exposed. Therefore, Jiang Tian might know his true appearance, but he didn't know what crimes he had committed. He also didn't know where he had committed the crimes. Therefore, he could only rely on the clues provided by the Six Fan School to deduce his next move and kill him. Reporting to the Master of State, there is indeed such a perverted thief. 10 years ago, he appeared in the Empire's Beijiang Duke's territory, Full Frost City's Red Moon Lake. He calls himself the Lotus Harvester. When Tian Chengjun heard this, his expression turned serious as he spoke solemnly. He specializes in hunting young female cultivators. This thief has a cruel character and is worse than a beast. Every time he plucks a woman, he likes to kill the victim cruelly and cut off the two things on her chest as a souvenir to play with at all times. That's him. When Jiang Tian heard this, his heart was moved. How can there be such a savage person in this world? He is simply inhuman. When Big Black heard this, it immediately revealed an angry expression as it yelled with widened eyes, "How does your Six Fan School do things? Such an evil and vicious criminal should have been pursued and intercepted long ago. After capturing him, he should have been killed as a sacrifice to the heavens and dismembered into thousands of pieces to comfort the souls of those women who had died tragically. How can we let him live freely until today and harm so many lives? You are right to blame him." Tian Chengjun didn't dare to be disrespectful to Big Black as he sighed and explained, "This Lotus Harvester's movement technique is exceptional and can shatter the void. Many people guessed that he has a half-step soul transformation cultivation. Furthermore, he is a lone thief who specializes in harming female cultivators. He has experienced hundreds of battles, and his strength is naturally exceptional. Our Six Fan School only has a few soul transformation experts. Most of the constables who investigate the cases are only at the Golden Core or Nascent Soul realm. They are lacking in strength." His face was filled with fear and uneasiness. "Chief Constable Tian, you don't have to blame yourself." Jiang Tian smiled indifferently and said, "You just need to give me the case files of this person and the cases that he is suspected to have committed." In the depths of his eyes, a biting, cold, murderous intent flashed by. His deduction of the great case file art was extremely exquisite. As long as there were enough precedents, he would be able to deduce the pattern of Jiang Tian's crimes and his next move. When the time came, Jiang Tian would be beheaded immediately. Chapter 1981. Yes, Lord Royal Preceptor. Tian Beiqing quickly bowed and activated his magic power. Light filled the air and formed words and pictures. He copied many jade slips and documents. Tian Beiqing left the original and handed the copied version to Jiang Tian. Then he flattered, "This thief has done many evil things and will be punished by God. The saint is merciful and benevolent. He helped to eliminate evil and protect the world. He will be praised by the world and admired by everyone in the future. This matter is very important. You must remember that I am concerned about this case. You must not spread the news of me asking for the documents. Today, I am here to talk to you about guarding the housewarming banquet." Jiang Tian suddenly looked serious and said in a low voice, "I will not spread it. I will rot in my stomach." Feeling a majestic and heavy pressure and hidden killing intent, Tian Beiqing felt as if his soul and body were moving together. Even the gods became stiff. The rules and Daoist around him were about to be torn and imprisoned. He could not help but be scared out of his wits. He promised repeatedly, "In addition, give me the recent activities of the big sects and aristocratic families that the 6th Fan School has found out." Jiang Tian said in a low voice. Of course, this was not a problem. Tian Beiqing quickly took out a copy of a jade slip. Record book. It recorded the activities that the sects and aristocratic families were going to hold in the near future. The 6th Fan School supervised the world and had branches all over the empire. They were like branches with billions of tentacles. Every day, they would report the information they found to their superiors and finally gather it at the headquarters of the 6th Fan School. Moreover, they were also in contact with the sects and the intelligence agencies of other countries. "Yes, this is it. You can go now." Jiang Tian waved his hand. It was as if spring had returned to the earth and the cold had retreated. Tian Beiqing suddenly felt his body and mind lightened. It was as if an ancient god had moved a huge mountain on his body with an invisible giant hand. He felt comfortable and normal again. "I will take my leave." Tian Beiqing's reverence for Jiang Tian reached an unprecedented level. He bowed slightly and left. Following Tian Qingjuan's departure, the rear hall once again fell into a desolate silence. Jiang Tian sat on the bed of clouds without saying a word. His face was calm and his eyes flickered. No one knew what he was thinking. Only a gentle breeze blew, causing his wide robe to tremble slightly. Suddenly, Jiang Tian slowly raised his right hand and pointed in the air, causing numerous jade slips and documents to float before him. Above it, brilliant light blossomed. Paragraphs of text and pictures appeared in the air, all of which were records of the Lotus Harvester. His profound dual models suddenly lit up and shot out 3 feet of white light. Inside his pupils, there seemed to be many runes wriggling and combining in his pupils, forming 2 colored glazed divine lamps that could illuminate the past, present, and future. They could see through the 9 underworlds and the celestial world to investigate all the causes and effects. Under the illumination of the eyes of Jiang Tian's colored glazed divine lamps, many jade slips flew up and down. Endless pictures and text floated, constantly rearranging and reorganizing. Jiang Tian used the principles of mathematics and the art of planning to summarize the past cases of the Lotus Harvester, find the hidden rules, and deduce the future. On the surface, the Lotus Harvester's crimes were very irregular. He could commit crimes at any time and any place. Apart from the fact that the target was a female cultivator, there were no other common characteristics. However, under the deduction of Jiang Tian's grand case art, the complicated and disorderly appearance collapsed like snow, and the essence within was revealed. It was an unchanging pattern. Found it. The dazzling light in Jiang Tian's eyes suddenly dimmed, and he returned to his normal state. However, a smile appeared on his face. On the 15th of every month, when the northern sky's cross star is the brightest, the Lotus Harvester Yang Ding Tian will definitely commit crimes. This is because he cultivates the extremely fierce and violent laws of thunder and fire. After a long time, the evil fire and poisonous thoughts in his heart are extremely strong. In addition, the cross star is a thunder star. Once it approaches the continent, His senses will be stronger and he must reconcile with his vital yin. Thoughts emerged in Jiang Tian's mind, and his train of thought gradually formed. It's too uncomfortable. He's too uncomfortable. Suddenly, as if one turned into three, the passing me Jiang Tian swayed out. His hair was unkempt, and his appearance was rough and barbaric to the extreme. Seeing this scene, God Niu Pai was so scared that he almost exploded on the spot. This was the passing me Jiang Tian who almost killed him on 100 Flowers Peak. However, the passing me Jiang Tian did not pay attention to him. Instead, his eyes were fixed, and he muttered to himself like a madman. The lotus harvester's heart seems to be fried in hot oil, and his whole body seems to be burning in a raging fire. Under his skin, there seems to be many burning insects crawling, and his whole body is about to dry up. Only tearing and killing can calm him down. Only his vital yin can extinguish the flames of desire, and only fresh blood can dissipate that feeling of dryness. Go on. You are best at speculating about such vicious and evil deeds. The passing me Jiang Tian stepped out, as if he had traveled through the ages from the end of the void. His face was as handsome as a god, and his aura was even more extraordinary. There was not the slightest trace of dust. His eyes were like the eternal blue sky, and there was not the slightest fluctuation of emotion in them. The passing me Jiang Tian was the collection of Jiang Tian's evil thoughts and the image of depravity. He was best at standing from the perspective of evil people and understanding evil people. Although the future of the lotus harvester he deduced was based on his instinct and intuition, it was more accurate than Jiang Tian's great case art. If one was not crazy, one would not survive. If one did not become a devil and understand his logic, how could one be one step ahead of him? A female cultivator of the law of ice and snow extinguishes the scorching evil fire in my body, so that I will not suffer the pain of thirst. A female cultivator of the water attribute sobers me up, as if I am drinking sweet spring dew. A female cultivator of the wood attribute can nourish my soul and body that is like a dead tree and return to normal. The passing me Jiang Tian was like a lunatic, as if he was a parasite in Yang Dingtian's inner world. In other words, he was Yang Dingtian's soul formation at this moment, equally evil. Jiang Tian's true body nodded. Although Yang Dingtian's crime areas are also in other countries, they are more in the Eastern Empire, accounting for 80%. The Northern Territory Duke's territories have the most crime records. Among them, the Red Moon, Hesse, and Giant Rock cities have more. The remaining cities have 1 or 2 crimes occasionally, but the frequency is not high. Jiang Tian glanced at the passing me Jiang Tian and said, "What do you think, passing me?" The most recent crime was also in Hesse City. The passing me Jiang Tian nodded slightly and spoke with a calm expression, as though he was expressionless. This is because the Northern Territory Duke's territory has a vile environment, complicated terrain, and few pedestrians. It is the most convenient place for him to commit crimes and hide. Yang Dingtian's movement technique might be fast, but he mainly cultivates the thunder and fire attribute cultivation technique. He is definitely not proficient in long-distance running. Therefore, he must have a nest in the Northern Territory Duke's territory. As the saying goes, a crafty rabbit has 3 burrows. If I can find a nest, it will be much easier to capture and kill this person. Let me twist this kid's head and dismember his body into thousands of pieces. How dare you try to lay your hands on my precious Ling? Do you think I don't exist? The passing me Jiang Tian rubbed his palms, but deep in his eyes, there was a flash of greed and passion. The passing me Jiang Tian shook his head and spoke resolutely. Previously at the 100 Flowers Peak, you provoked Fairy Qingjue and caused me so much trouble. This time, if you go play in the mortal world again, I wonder what kind of disaster you will cause. Perhaps, your evil thoughts and evil heart might be hooked by Yang Dingtian and fall into eternal damnation. You can even see through this. The passing me Jiang Tian wasn't convinced and snorted. Those young ladies are already fish on the chopping board. I saved their lives. How can I not collect some interest? What's more, this young master is gentle and decent. I respect women and am proficient in starting from the depths of the body to achieve the resonance of the soul. I will definitely let them have a great time. He spoke proudly and complacently. As long as it is a woman, as long as they have intercourse with this young master once, they will definitely be addicted to me and will never be able to leave me again. Aren't all women like that? I am handsome and skilled, so I am flirting and teasing. Yang Dingtian is ugly, so he is violating. Before he could finish his words, the passing Mi Jiang Tian had already descended from the sky and stepped on him. Shut up. Otherwise, I will stomp you to death. The passing Mi Jiang Tian yelled out coolly. The passing Mi Jiang Tian was stomped so hard that all the bones in his body were about to crack. However, he still spoke like a hoodlum. I am speaking the truth. This is an era where looks are important. Women always have double standards and are unreasonable. Once I whip them, they will become obedient. Chapter 1982. Jiang Tian said, Daowa, this time, you will go and kill Yang Dingtan. Remember, you need to hide your tracks and conceal your identity. Don't have any connection with Wang Lin. I'm afraid that the one above the 9 heavens will notice. Got it. Jiang Tian's eyes were deep as he nodded solemnly. Wang Lin came from Earth, so this matter was open and honest. Once Jiang Tian and Wang Lin had a connection, the Immortal Emperor would be able to figure out Jiang Tian's true identity in a matter of seconds. Jiang Tian didn't want his every move to be watched by a giant of the immortal world for the next hundreds or thousands of years. Daowa, I will be in charge of the back hall. During the housewarming banquet, you will deal with the nobles and suppress the forces behind them. You can kill more people, the more the better, Jiang Tian said in a deep voice. But didn't you dislike me for being reckless and having a strong killing intent? Dao was snorted with dissatisfaction. The giants of the immortal world look down on all the worlds. Their divine senses are as vast as the sea of stars, which is naturally terrifying. However, they have the same limitations as ordinary people. They are far from knowing everything and occupying the past, present, and future. Jiang Tian said in a deep voice. They look down on the lower realm universe just like how mortals go to a library. They first enter the branch library, then enter different areas, then look at the bookshelves, then the book titles, the table of contents, and finally every chapter, paragraph, and text. Unless it's a very interesting situation, the giants of the immortal world won't look down on the lower realm. Even if they occasionally glance at the bookshelves and book titles, they won't open them for a closer look. It's like you would only occasionally glance at an ant's nest on the road and not squat down to take a closer look. This is the arrogance of a higher life form towards a lower life form. What we need to do is to turn this housewarming banquet into a very eye-catching and wonderful book, or even an exquisite bookshelf full of books. However, the matter of killing Yang Dingtian could only be a small line of words hidden in a lousy book. Only in this way will we be able to avoid the prying eyes of that big shot from the immortal world. Jiang Tian glanced at Sherwin Daowa and said coldly. Jiang Tian nodded without any change in his expression. He glanced at the actions of the various sects and families in recent days and secretly memorized them in his heart. He said, "Shall we start?" "Yeah, I can't wait to kill." Jiang Tian's eyes shone with an ominous glint. He was eager to give it a try. Jiang Tian's real body sat upright on the cloud bed. He nodded slightly and said calmly, "You too, let's do it. Remember, this matter concerns our survival and fate. You must be extremely cautious." Jiang Tian started to leave. When he reached the door, his body changed, turning into a snake that slithered into the grass. When he reached the pond in the back garden, the snake entered the water, startling a group of maidservants who were playing in the water. One after another, they ran to the shore. The snake seemed to have been startled, and with a shake of its body, it transformed into a big koi fish and swam along the river towards the blue river outside the mansion. The blue river was full of spiritual qi, and the water plants were abundant, nourishing all living things. Many creatures had developed spiritual intelligence and were full of wisdom. They were close to becoming monsters. However, they lived together with humans since they were young and were close to humans. They were not killed or expelled by humans. The big koi fish swam to the bottom of the river, avoiding the pecking of the spiritual cranes and the sneak attack of the alligators snapping turtles. At the city gate, it turned into a frog and jumped ashore. After a few steps, it came to the woods and grass. A moment later, a white civet cat came out of the jungle and walked around the trees. Its blue eyes looked left and right, then it kept moving in the shadows, sticking to the ground and walls. Finally, it climbed to the top floor of a restaurant, squatted there, and waited quietly. Suddenly, a flying boat pulled by a wind spirit bird passed by. The white civet cat jumped and landed on the flying boat. There were a few simple words on the flying boat: Imperial Capital, Giant Stone City. The art of deceiving the heavens and concealing the earth is the best at transformation. Daoist's 100 transformations are traceless. I think even the big shots of the 9 heavens immortal world can't detect it. Jiang Tian's original body sat on the cloud bed and retracted his divine sense. He sighed with a calm expression, and there was some satisfaction in his tone. It's time for me to appear, right? Jiang Tian's carefree and unfettered nature made Jiang Tian very envious and impatient. Outside the door, various vassals had already arrived. Jiang Tian really wanted to go out and kill. No hurry. We'd better wait for Daoist to find clues and make a move at the same time. Jiang Tian's original body was neither arrogant nor impatient. Jiang Tian's current status was very high. He was a dignified heavenly master of a country and was very important. His housewarming should be quite grand and the ceremony should be very complicated. To open the mansion door, he had to invite guests and hold a banquet for 10 days and 10 nights. During this period, the vassals would not stay in the Grand Preceptor's mansion and would not leave. Therefore, Jiang Tian had plenty of time to maneuver. Glancing at Jiang Tian held his forehead with his hand and said helplessly, "You have to change your appearance. Can't you look more like an imperial preceptor? Even if you're a berserk imperial preceptor, you're still an imperial preceptor after all." In the extreme north of the empire, the sky was filled with snow and the sky was dim. The snowflakes were the size of a palm. When they landed on people, they even felt heavy. The streets were covered in snow all year round. The buildings in the city were like ice sculptures in jade, magnificent and moving. The temperature was extremely cold. When people exhaled, the water vapor in them would immediately turn into ice crystals and scatter. The temperature was extremely cold. There were many liquor stores on the streets. Mortals had to wear warm dharma artifacts to live. Otherwise, they would immediately turn into ice. Under the sky filled with lead clouds, a blue luan bird spread its wings and glided steadily, landing in a post house. On the bird's back, a cloud building that was carved with raging fire runes opened. Many tourists were either yawning listlessly or looking around with curiosity. They were all shocked by the magnificent and cold ice giant city. The wind spirit bird wasn't a high-grade spirit bird and was mostly used for long-distance voyages by the secular world. Its speed wasn't fast and would take 5 days to reach Giant Stone City. But Jiang Tian had changed his free mount a few times during the journey and arrived at Giant Stone City on the 3rd day. In fact, the place where Yang Dingtian committed the most crimes was Full Frost City. But Jiang Tian naturally had his reasons for choosing this place. The 6th Fan School wasn't a group of people that did nothing. Since Full Frost City had committed the most crimes, they naturally set up many sentry posts and constables in Full Frost City. There were over 30 nascent soul constables and even a soul transformation realm high-ranking constable who would supervise the investigation and pursuit from time to time. Meanwhile, Hessa City was adjacent to Full Frost City. In between them was a snowy plain that stretched for thousands of miles. It was unobstructed and was also within Full Frost City's range of influence. Furthermore, Yang Dingtian had also succeeded twice in this place. Therefore, the city's defense was tighter. Giant Stone City was separated from these two cities by an ice mountain that was thousands of feet tall. Most importantly, this ice mountain was also occupied by demonic beasts and was tainted by demonic qi. Therefore, it was extremely difficult to reach Giant Stone City from Hesse City and Full Frost City. Furthermore, to the north of Giant Stone City was the border and the neighboring country. It was extremely convenient to escape. After all, the Eastern Empire's constables and soldiers weren't allowed to enter other countries as they wished. They had to report the other country's protection and obtain permission. Otherwise, it would be considered an invasion, and the report would naturally require a certain amount of time. By this time, Yang Dingtian had already escaped. The orbit of the cross star was getting closer and closer to the continent. The thunder attribute law and great Tao's fluctuations were intense, interfering with the cultivator's body and mind. Jiang Tian believed that Yang Dingtian would soon commit a crime in Giant Stone City. Chapter 1983. A young girl dressed in red fur clothes, about 17 or 18 years old, walked out of the Cloud Tower's cabin door with light steps and walked down the stairs. In her arms, she was holding a white civet cat with an arrogant expression and indifferent eyes. It was Jiang Tian. How can I tease you? You're ignoring me. You're really a proud little cutie. The girl scratched the white civet cat's head and pouted her bright red lips. She was both helpless and fond of the cat. Nanan, where did you get this civet cat? Her parents, a middle-aged couple, greeted her with a kind smile on their faces. The man had long arms and legs, and he was tall and big. His hands were covered with burn scars and calluses from frostbite. He wore a protective magic artifact, but the runes on it had been worn out for too long. At first glance, one could tell that he was a low-level mortal who lived a conservative life. I picked it up on the road. It's so cute. The girl ran over excitedly and threw the cat into her father's arms. She hugged her mother's waist and rubbed her head on her mother's neck and face. She said coquettishly, "Mother, I haven't seen you for 3 years after I went to the capital. I really miss you. Don't pick up a living thing of unknown origin. You're not young anymore. How can you be so immature? If it's a violent demonic beast, we'll be in trouble." The man scolded with a straight face, but there was unconcealable pride and love in the depths of his eyes. The man's surname was Lu. Their ancestor was a cultivator from beyond the galaxy with a nascent soul cultivation base. However, he was old and weak. He couldn't find a suitable job, couldn't get merit points, and couldn't earn crystal stones. Naturally, he couldn't get a household registration in a big city. After going around in circles, he was harassed by demonic beasts and bullied by powerful cultivators. After going through all kinds of hardships, he could only settle down in this small city on the border. Giant Stone City was originally a cold place and was not suitable for living. Moreover, it didn't have a large spirit gathering array like the capital and Jianghan City. Therefore, the conditions for moving into the household registration were also very low. Cultivators from beyond the river were not valued in the empire. Moreover, on the mainland, the Great Path was firm and the laws were suppressed. Nascent soul cultivators from beyond the river could only exert the strength of golden core or even chi refinement. In Grand Boulder City, the status of the patriarch was not high, and he did not have any decent assets or accumulations. He could only hunt some demon beasts and exchange them for crystals and materials, barely getting by. After struggling for dozens of years, he finally married a local female cultivator with a low cultivation base and had a few children. It could be said that he had taken root on this continent. It was just that after the ancestor's death, there were very few disciples with extraordinary aptitudes in their clan. In addition, the several sets of cultivation methods that the patriarch brought from outside the river did not conform to the laws and great Daoists of this world, so the inheritance of combined cultivation was gradually cut off. The girl's generation was already the 5th generation, and they were completely reduced to a mortal family. The man with the surname Lu ran a blacksmith's shop. Because he was kind and honest, the quality of his ironware was good, and he never lacked in weight. In the area north of the city, there were many regular customers, and everyone affectionately called him Brother Lu. Although her family was very poor, her daughter managed to find a good job in the capital. She worked as a maid in a marquise mansion. Her annual salary was not a small amount. Furthermore, she could secretly learn some cultivation techniques. The master also allowed her to do as she pleased and did not restrict her. Sometimes, the man would dream in his heart that one day, his daughter could become a cultivator again and become a superior person, bringing glory to her ancestors. Father, don't be so fierce to me. I'm at the foundation establishment stage now, and my divine sense has been activated, so I can naturally see if it's a demon beast or not. It's just an ordinary cat. The girl said proudly. That's right. It's not easy for our daughter to come back. She hasn't even had a bite of hot food, and you're already so fierce. Besides, our daughter has cultivation base, but do you have it? The mother of the Lu family spoiled her daughter without any principles, and she immediately scolded her husband. I'm just worried that she'll be taken advantage of. Anyway, there's nothing wrong with being careful. Being scolded by his wife, the old man of the Lu family blushed. He seemed to be a little helpless and explained helplessly, Manhan, half a year ago, when the little brother of the Li family of Chang'e was playing outside the city, he picked up a white fox. He thought it was pretty, clever, and cute, so he brought it home. Who knew that it was a demon beast that had cultivated to the demon core stage? That night, it ate the whole Li family, not even leaving behind a single heart, liver, spleen, or lung. The old man of the Lu family rambled on. The family of three stepped on the snow and walked towards the north of the city. The Dragon Whisker Ditch in the north of the city was a real slum. It used to be the sewage channel of Giant Stone City. Later, it was abandoned, and the residents of the lower class gathered there. The dilapidated houses were scattered, and the terrain was extremely low. Over the years, they were covered in snow and ice, and the sewage flowing through them turned into ice crystals. The wooden door, which had been eroded by the wind, snow, and sunlight until the black paint peeled off, revealing the white logs within, was pushed open. The family of three passed through the cramped courtyard filled with furnaces and blacksmithing tools, which emitted a faint rusty smell, and walked into a large house. By the way, daughter, didn't you send a message back saying that you can only return home once in 3 years? Why did you suddenly? Did you cause trouble and make the master unhappy? After the old man of the Lu family sat down, he asked worriedly. The white civet cat squatted on the ground and looked at the wind and snow outside the window. It raised its ears as if it was listening to something. No. Lu Manhan smiled and said, the new imperial preceptor, Saint Xiqing, moved into the crown prince's mansion and held a housewarming banquet. The marquis and his successor that I serve will also attend the banquet. Moreover, the banquet will be very grand. It will be a banquet that lasts for 10 days and 10 nights. During this period, the master won't return home, so there's no need for us to serve him. She poured herself a cup of tea and gulped it down. Wiping her mouth, she smiled and said, moreover, the imperial preceptor's ascension to the throne is also a celebration. We all have to take 10 days off. Therefore, the master gave us, the servants, a holiday to visit the family. The new imperial preceptor, Mr. and Mrs. Lu, did not take it to heart after hearing it. This kind of big shot was too far away from them. In fact, they had never heard of the name Saint Xiqing. The mountains and rivers here were dangerous, and the people's livelihood was poor. There were few people, and even news was very limited. However, seeing that their daughter didn't cause any trouble, they were relieved. Knock, knock, knock. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Manhan, you're back? Where is he? Following the cheers, a 15 or 16-year-old boy ran into the courtyard excitedly. It's Kong Cheng. In the years that you weren't around, he talked about you every day. The Lu couple immediately revealed a kind smile and said to their daughter. They hurriedly opened the door and let the boy in. This boy was their neighbor. His name was Kong Cheng. The ancestor of the Kong family was also an extragalactic cultivator. He had a close relationship with the Lu family's ancestor. They used to travel all over the empire to make a living together. They killed demon beasts together and fought bandits together. They were people who could trust each other with their backs. However, after 1,000 years, the Kong family was no longer as glorious as it used to be. The Kong family's father was a hunter, and the Kong family's mother worked as a maid in a rich family. She usually sewed and mended clothes to supplement the family's income. The two families had been friends for generations and were neighbors. Naturally, they were close. Kong Cheng and Lu Manhen could be said to be childhood sweethearts. They were like siblings. Especially in the past few years when Lu Manhen was in the capital, Kong Cheng had been helping the Lu family. When the old couple was injured or sick, he was the one who ran around to get medicine. If there were any hooligans who wanted to bully them, he was the one who protected them and stood up for them. Chapter 1984. Kong Cheng, you've grown taller. Seeing Kong Cheng enter, Lu Manhen suddenly stood up, her face full of joy. She quickly walked up to him, wanting to hug him, but then retracted her hands. She suddenly realized that they were no longer children. They were all grown up and there was a difference between men and women. Sister Manhen, you've also grown taller and prettier. Kong Cheng scratched his head in embarrassment, his face slightly red. His eyes were filled with surprise, love, and affection. The big sister next door had actually become so beautiful. A subtle feeling also rippled in the youth's heart. Kong Cheng, come and sit. Father Lu picked up a pair of metal tongs and opened the stove. The high-quality silver charcoal inside immediately turned red, emitting scorching energy. This silver charcoal was formed by the fossilization of silver fir wood from ancient times. It emitted a scorching primordial qi that could resist the invasion of the harsh primordial qi and precepts of this place. It had to be burned for a while a day, otherwise, the house would immediately turn into ice. Of course, it was also very expensive. Half of the Lu family's income was spent on this. Child, eat. The Lu family's mother also served some ginger tea and snacks. Thank you, uncle and aunt. The four of them chatted for a while, gradually closing the distance between them. Kong Cheng was most curious about the outside world, so he kept asking questions, showing the curiosity of a youth. Lu Manhen slowly described the magnificent capital city, the prosperous life, and the countless cultivators. This made Kong Cheng envious. The more he listened, the more excited he became. His eyes lit up as he clenched his fists and said excitedly, "Tonight, I'll talk to Father. I also want to leave Boulder City and go to the capital. I want to see the bigger world." However, Lu Manhen did not say that she had already reached the foundation establishment stage, because she knew that Kong Cheng had always wanted to cultivate. However, he did not have the opportunity to join any sect, nor did he have the opportunity to enter the Capital Institute. Because the empire did not have an institute. The system of the empire was hereditary. The family ruled the world, not the empire. The imperial power was weak. The 6 departments of the imperial court, as well as the official positions, were only equivalent to sending out representatives. In the territories of the vassals, they did not have any law enforcement power. There was no government-run institute for the commoners. The promotion channels for the lower-class people were almost completely blocked. Not everyone was so lucky as to be able to find a job in a feudal lord's mansion and be able to get close to cultivators like him. Moreover, this marquis was a good-tempered and benevolent person. He didn't care about his own cultivation and just let him do as he pleased. Only the rise of the imperial tutor, Sage Siqing, gave her a glimmer of hope. Because he was also an extragalactic cultivator. Many extragalactic cultivators were spreading rumors that the imperial preceptor would implement a series of new policies that would benefit the extragalactic cultivators. Moreover, some of them had already been implemented. You just came back, so I'll treat you to a meal. Let's go to the pines and cranes. When the sky gradually darkened, Kong Cheng suddenly got up and invited him with a smile. Building of pines and cranes? It's so expensive. This child, your father earned some money from hunting. It's not easy. Don't waste it. Old man Lu hurriedly stopped him and nagged, I'll cook. I'll roast a chicken and some snow lotus vegetables. Your father even sent over a deer leg some time ago. I'll make some bacon for it. After steaming it, it'll be another good dish. I'll heat up a pot of wine. This. When he said this, Kong Cheng blushed and flushed. He was in a dilemma. In his heart, he wanted to treat Lu Manhin to a meal. There were many things he wanted to ask her, and many things he wanted to tell her. Moreover, the money he used was earned from his hard work outside, not from his father. However, he was indeed a loyal, filial, and righteous child. He knew that in order to maintain the family's livelihood, his father often suffered. In order to save money, when his mother sewed alone at home, she couldn't even bear to burn silver charcoal. She was so cold that her hands were full of frostbite. Should eat at home? Old man, are you confused? Kong Cheng looks at your orange face all day long. Hasn't he seen enough? What's there to eat with you? Let's eat outside. Mother Lu suddenly pinched her husband and scolded. Oh, yes. You two haven't seen each other for a few years. Let's talk about something personal. Old man Lu immediately understood and laughed. However, Mother Lu called her daughter into the room and took out a small cloth bag from the cabinet. Inside it were a few scattered pieces of low-grade crystals. She said, "Daughter, you must not let Kong Cheng spend money. He has helped our family a lot over the years. Take this money, it should be enough for a meal." "Mother, I have money." Lu Manhin hurriedly refused. The cost of living in the capital is high. Moreover, we are registered as rogue cultivators outside the Milky Way. We don't get the same pay for equal work. Your salary is low, can you save money? Her mother asked worriedly. The royal family was the noblest, followed by the feudal lords. Below them were the civil officials, generals, and commoners. However, all the natives were higher than the cultivators outside the Milky Way. The first generation of rogue cultivators outside the Milky Way and the first 5 generations of rogue cultivators all indicated that even if they did the same work as the native cultivators and did the same amount of work, they often received only 1/3 of the latter's pay, or even less. At least in the capital, the residents outside the Milky Way and the natives already get the same pay for equal work. Lu Manhin said half jokingly. Moreover, the feudal lord I serve is also a man who takes advantage of the situation. In order to please the state preceptor, before the holidays, he increased my salary for the past few years by several times. Now, I have tens of thousands of low-grade crystals on me. So much money! Mother Lu immediately fell into a state of ecstasy and shock. She then grabbed her daughter's sleeve and asked in confusion, "But why did you say that the Duke increased your reward in order to curry favor with the state preceptor?" "Because the state preceptor is a rogue cultivator outside the Milky Way. Rumor has it that he comes from the Black Sun star field." Lu Manhin smiled proudly and said, "And we are also from the Black Sun star field." When the feudal lords saw the state preceptor, wouldn't the state preceptor be very happy? After all, the feudal lord also took care of his fellow countrymen. Is there such an amazing genius in the Black Sun star field? He actually reached the position of state preceptor. Mother Lu was shocked. "Just now, I gave this civet some deer leg meat, but it didn't eat it. What a picky eater. I can't even bear to eat it myself. I have to eat it with wine." When Lu Manhin turned to leave, she heard her father grumbling. "It understands human nature. It probably wants to eat the good food in the building of pines and cranes." Lu Manhin picked up the big white civet and walked out of the door with a smile. "Look at it. It's so smooth. At first glance, you can tell that it comes from a rich family and has never lived a hard life. The leg of a water deer is too disgusting for him to eat. This is inviting a lord back." Father Lu sighed helplessly behind her. Chapter 1985. Hee, have you guys heard? Tomorrow night, the Snow Dance sect will hold the once-in-a-decade grand competition. This time, it is said that the South and North sects are determined to win the Snow Dance Palace. How can those girls from the North sect be a match for those animals from the South sect? If I remember correctly, the North sect has not won in the past 60 years. Every dog has its day. It is said that in these years, Madame Huzhu of the North sect has opened the mountain gate and recruited disciples. She has accepted a few disciples with good strength. There is hope to challenge the South sect successfully. Who cares? No matter who lives in it. That Snowdance Palace is not for us to live in. It's nothing more than a group of men replaced by a group of women. I hope that the girls from the North sect win this match. I heard that they all have skin of ice and bones of jade, peerless beauty, and peerless beauty. Moreover, they are pure and unblemished. The noble children of the empire like to marry their disciples. If only I had the chance to take a look. What qualifications do you have to take a look? You have to be at least at the foundation establishment realm to be qualified. In the building of pines and cranes, Jiang Tian, who had transformed into a raccoon, sat cross-legged on a chair with his eyes closed and snoring loudly. However, his ears were raised and he silently listened to the discussions around him. There was no other way. Kong Cheng, this silly child, was too enthusiastic. He kept feeding it. In order to calm his Dao heart and lengthen the journey of becoming immortal, Jiang Tian's original body lingered in the mortal world. However, Jiang Tian was extraordinary and even more detached than Jiang Tian's original body. It was his ideal incarnation, the future direction, the goal he pursued, infinitely close to the soul formation realm and had the characteristics of a saint. How could he eat these mortal things? It was simply torture. Only by pretending to be asleep could this kid stop. It was just that along the way, as well as in the building of pines and cranes. What he heard the most was about the Snowdance Sect Grand Competition. The winner of this grand competition would enter the Snowdance Hall. The loser would have to leave, be displaced, and find another place to settle down. This Snowdance Sect was only a small sect in the northern part of the empire. Compared to a colossus like the ancient medicine hall, it was like an earthworm compared to a true dragon. The sect leader was only at the peak of the nascent soul stage and most of his disciples were only at the golden core stage. Snowy Dance Sect, proficient in ice and snow cultivation methods, with skin of ice and bones of jade, a stunning beauty, he only said, "Dao me." When Jiang Tian heard this, many pieces of information connected together in his mind. In a flash, the memories of his past life, that he shared with Jiang Tian's true body were also suddenly awakened. Some hidden memories surfaced. This year in his previous life, during the Snowdance Palace competition, a master suddenly broke in and killed all the women of the northern sect after defiling them. The others weren't spared as well, and they were all annihilated. The Lotus Harvester was done by Yang Dingtun. However, the Snowdance sect was originally a small sect. There were at least 10,000 of them in the empire. Naturally, this matter was drowned in the vast history books. Even Jiang Tian could not think of it in an instant. After all, he had lived for a long time. In his previous life, he had stayed in this world for a long time. There were many things to do, and the information was jumbled up. How could he remember in an instant? Sigh, if only I could go and take a look. When Kong Cheng heard the surrounding discussions, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh and was filled with yearning. He already knew that apart from inviting some experts from the Northern Territory to spectate the competition, there were also some quotas that were open to the public. However, these quotas weren't something that could be obtained by just anyone. One either had to pay 100,000 crystals or have a cultivation that was above the nascent soul realm. And Kong Cheng naturally didn't have either of these. However, at this moment, a luxuriously dressed youth walked in sloppily. There were 7 or 8 bodyguards following behind him. Each of them had a strict aura and had a cultivation. This young man was quite handsome, but his eyes were sinister, giving people a feeling of viciousness and cunning. He was wearing a white mink coat, but he was still waving a folding fan in his hand in the cold weather. He was labeled as pretentious and showy. Oh, isn't this young Master Bai? Welcome, welcome. There's a private room upstairs. A waiter's face was filled with joy as he bowed and welcomed him. Young Master Bai. Young Master Bai is here for a meal. Everyone present stood up and greeted him warmly. Their eyes were either fearful or fawning. This young Master Bai was the son of the city lord of Boulder City, Bai Yulong. He was a distant relative of the Northern Territory Duke and had a cultivation level. He was a golden core cultivator. In the local area, no one dared to provoke him. However, the moment Kong Cheng saw that it was young Master Bai, his face was filled with fear, and his body trembled slightly. 3 years ago, the Liu family's father had forged a batch of armor for the Bai family's private soldiers. The Bai family owed the wages and Kong Cheng helped to ask for them. Coincidentally, young Master Bai happened to see him and he was almost beaten to death. Kong Cheng had been lying in bed for half a year before he regained his senses. "What's wrong?" Lu Manhin asked softly, a look of worry and surprise on her face. "Nothing." The stubborn youth didn't want to show weakness and fear in front of the girl he loved. He forced a smile and pretended to be calm as he picked up food for the girl. "Everyone eat and drink well." Young Master Bai and Bai Yulong did not notice the existence of the two people. They casually cupped their hands and greeted in a circle. Suddenly, he took out 2 gilded invitations from the storage ring, patted them in his hand, and said with a smile, "Everyone, who wants the tickets to the Snow Dance Palace competition? I have a surplus here, he." As soon as his voice fell, the crowd suddenly became restless. Immediately, a young man dressed as a noble young master stood up and said, "Young Master Bai, I offer 30,000 low-grade crystals. I wonder if you are willing to part with one?" 30,000? "Brother, have you just woken up from a dream?" Next to him, a guest dressed as a rich businessman immediately shouted, "This is the Snow Dance Sect competition. The participants are all stunning beauties with powerful cultivation. Not only is it highly ornamental, but it can also increase one's knowledge, stimulate one's potential, and achieve the ultimate sublimation. How much is it? Let's not talk about it. The highest bidder gets it." Bai Yulong said with a smile. 100,000 low-grade crystals, one, give it to me. And 150,000 for an invitation. I offer 200,000, I want one. For a time, the whole place was filled with the sound of bidding. Is this the charm of cultivation? When Kong Cheng heard this, he could not help but be stunned and speechless. He deeply felt that it was worth coming to the building of pines and cranes this time. It was an eye-opener. An invitation to watch the competition was actually worth 20 years of his family's income. If he did not see it with his own eyes, he would not dare to believe it. A moment later, the 2 invitations were bought by a rich businessman with gold core cultivation at a high price of 500,000 low-grade crystals. This small auction was considered to have come to an end. "Sister Manhan, I heard that to join a cultivation sect like the Snow Dance sect, one has to pay 1,000,000 low-grade crystals a year. I don't know if it's true or not." Seeing that Bai Yulong was about to leave, the young man relaxed and asked with bright eyes. He was full of curiosity about the cultivation world. Indeed. After all, Lu Manhin had stayed in the capital and had seen more. She smiled gently. Because there is a conflict between the North and South factions within the Snow Dance sect, they are all expanding and recruiting talents, so the standard of worship is lowered. In fact, under normal circumstances, if you want to join such a sect, you have to pay several times more. Sigh. I don't know when I can join such a sect and become a cultivator. Kong Cheng could not help but sigh. However, at this time, a voice full of sarcasm suddenly sounded beside him. Isn't this Kong Cheng of the Hunter family? You've recovered quite quickly, you can get out of bed already. But, who is this beauty beside you? Can you introduce her to me? When he turned his head and saw Bai Yulong's malicious smile, Kong Cheng's heart fell into the 9 nether abyss. Chapter 1986. Bai Yulong was a famous playboy. He often kidnapped women on the street, humiliated them, and even tortured them to death. His reputation was even worse than that of the Lotus Harvester. Not to mention that he was the son of the city lord and a distant relative of the Duke of Beijiang. Even if he did not have any cultivation, he could not afford to offend him. Besides, he was a golden core cultivator. He could turn a criminal like him into meat paste with one slap. This is my neighbor, Lu Manhin. Kong Cheng introduced her reluctantly. Young Master Bai, we're done eating. We'll leave first. Enjoy your meal. Kong Cheng's heart was full of worry and fear. He did not want to stay any longer. He forced a smile, threw down a piece of low-grade crystal, and pulled Lu Manhin away. There's also a civet cat. Lu Manhin wanted to pick up the civet cat, but it had already jumped onto her shoulder. Wait. However, Bai Yulong's body swayed and he stood in front of the two of them. He released his immense aura of the Aurus core stage, which was vast and mighty. Kong Cheng could not withstand it at all. He stumbled back like a withered leaf in the midst of a raging storm. Lu Manhin could still hold on. She looked unhappy and frowned. Young Master Bai, what do you want? You actually have a cultivation base? Chi refinement? Foundation establishment. You're really talented and beautiful. Bai Yulong praised with a smile. His triangular eyes were full of greed, and his gaze wandered over Lu Manhin's curvaceous body. He shook his folding fan and said with a smile, You seem to be interested in the snow dance competition. You seem to be very interested in the snow dance sect grand competition. To be honest, I have the same intention. Why don't you come with me to watch the competition? Isn't it a good thing to improve your cultivation and knowledge together? Besides, I know some experts in the snow dance sect. I can introduce them to you. He was not an idiot. He obviously coveted Lu Manhin's beauty, but his words were so dignified that it was difficult to refuse. Thank you for your kindness, young Master Bai. However, I just returned home and have to accompany my parents. I can't go. However, Lu Manhin knew clearly what he meant. Her pretty face tightened, and she declined politely. Without waiting for Bai Yulong to react, he hurriedly pulled Kong Cheng away. Wait! Bai Yulong stretched out his hand and his true essence surged. The might of a golden core perfected lord was unleashed, and he pulled the two of them back as if he was controlling them. Wonderful! He wrapped his arm around Lu Manhin's slender waist, his right hand reaching into the girl's clothes, his hands moving up and down, revealing an expression of extreme enjoyment. Master Bai, you've gone too far. What do you want? Kong Cheng fell to the ground and crawled to his feet. He glared at Bai Yulong and shouted angrily, but his words came to an abrupt halt. The other party had already made a move. Was there a need to ask what the other party wanted? His beloved goddess was blasphemed right in front of his face. Kong Cheng was overwhelmed with shock and anger. He was completely stunned. Blood rushed to his head, and the veins on his forehead were throbbing. Everything in front of him seemed to have turned red. Everyone, are you all full? Please make way. Disperse, disperse. Guys, get out of here as well. Master Bai has booked the whole place today. Bai Yulong's companions were already used to this and they cleared the place with ease. Yes, we'll take our leave. Master Bai, enjoy yourself and have a beautiful night. Many rich businessmen and young masters cupped their fists and left. They were cold and indifferent, and they even made harmless jokes. The social class of the empire was torn apart not only between the nobles and the commoners, but also within the commoners. The joy and sorrow of different social classes were not the same. The difference in distance between social classes was even greater than that between different species. In their eyes, Kong Cheng and Lu Manhin, the descendants of poor cultivators from beyond the Milky Way, were not of the same kind. So what if they were insulted? Even if they were killed, so what? Kong Cheng, save me. Only then did Lu Manhin realize the huge gap between Foundation establishment and Golden Core cultivators. It was like a chasm between heaven and earth. In the hands of the other party, she was very proud of herself and could not use the divine powers she was proud of. She could not resist or break free at all. Tears filled her eyes and she let out a shrill cry. Kong Cheng. Lu Manhin's cry was like a bolt of lightning that struck Kong Cheng's mind, waking him up and dispelling the bloody fog in front of him, allowing him to see the reality clearly. Like a drunk person, his mind was in a mess. Kong Cheng did not know how he picked up a chair, rushed to Bai Yulong's side, and smashed it down. He also did not know how Bai Yulong summoned his true essence and sent him flying more than 10 meters away in an instant, blood spurting from his mouth and nose. So smooth, In the midst of the chaos, huge feet stomped down fiercely, as heavy as a mountain. With every stomp, Kong Cheng felt his bones shatter. In the midst of the chaos, he heard Bai Yulong's mocking voice. No one noticed that when the raccoon landed silently on the ground, its cold eyes suddenly lit up with a blazing light, looking even more eerie. Under this flash of light, an invisible wave of mana enveloped the building of pines and cranes, causing the area to suddenly darken. It was as if the clouds had covered the moon, and the heavenly secrets were blocked. No one could see the inside story. Sister Manhin, it's a pity that I'm not a cultivator. Through the gaps between the figures, Kong Cheng could see that Lu Manhin had been stripped naked and was being pressed down by Bai Yulong. Bai Yulong was actually doing that in the main hall. Does it feel good? Bai Yulong's mind was twisted, and he had a wicked sense of humor. As he moved, he observed Kong Cheng's reaction, as if he wanted Kong Cheng to see and admire his painful and twisted expression. Bai Yulong, you're worse than a beast, and your sins are monstrous. One day, you'll suffer retribution and die a horrible death. Waves of dull pain came, but it was not as intense as the pain in his heart. Kong Cheng's eyes were about to split open, and he gritted his teeth. Tears of blood rolled down his cheeks, and he let out a hoarse roar like an injured beast. Kill him. Bai Yulong's cold voice sounded. With a chila sound, one of the followers waved his hand, and a sharp wind blade erupted from his palm and slashed towards Kong Cheng. The follower who attacked had a cold expression, and he was full of confidence, as if Kong Cheng was an ant that he could easily crush. He was also an expert at the Golden Core stage, and he was already a perfected cultivator. Of course, this level of cultivation was not obvious in the capital and other places where talents were abundant. But at least in this city, he could be considered an expert, and he was invincible. Not to mention that he was only facing an ordinary person with no cultivation. This world is so ugly and it's hopeless. Sensing the approach of death, boundless anger appeared in Kong Cheng's heart, and then it was extinguished, and he fell into a deep and impenetrable despair. However, at this moment, crack! A blade aura that pierced through the sky suddenly lit up, and it was like a flash of lightning, instantly illuminating the endless darkness. The follower suddenly let out a shrill cry. His ghastly armor that was sufficient to resist the bombardment of magic treasures suddenly split open, and then his entire body suddenly exploded. A bloody mist suffused the air as crystalline flesh and blood sprayed down like rain, and it enveloped the entire hall, causing a pungent smell of blood to suffuse the air. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.